Hello and welcome into Off the Bench on a rainy Friday here in the Queen City. Reed Mount, Stone Shields. We got a good show for you today. We do. We really do got a good show for you here on the Bengals bye week. The UC Bearcats bye week. We're right at the beginning of college basketball, and our Xavier Musketeers look great. They look great starting out 2-0. Bearcats play tonight on the hardwood. But we got a big FCC game, big MLS game this weekend that they're trying to win a series against their rival in the Hell is Real Derby, FCC versus the Columbus Crew. But we're going to be talking a lot of things. The Reds just announced some Hall of Fame candidates, so you can go out there and vote. Most of the players are players that, for younger guys like me, and yeah, even though I'm 29 years old, I'll still consider myself a younger guy. These are guys that I watched. And even not being a big Reds fan. These are guys that I watch and have some connection to from watching. Me and Stone right before we went live were doing the most fun game in the world, which is just rattling off random baseball players. He just randomly went, "Do you remember Eric Milton?" And I was like, "Yeah." "You remember Kyle Loesch?" And we just went back and forth. It's the best game that you could possibly play. We're going to be talking that. We're going to be doing some buy or sell. Stone, looking dapper as always. Thank you so much for producing the show today.
Of course, yeah. Happy to be here. Happy Friday. Yeah, we can talk about some other stuff today. Obviously, Bengals are off, UC's off, which is nice for all the local people that have to cover these teams. They get a nice little off weekend here. But yeah, we'll spend some time. We'll do some buy or sell. It's always a popular segment here. We'll talk Reds Hall of Fame, and yeah, maybe a little Bengals conversation there as well. So happy to be here as always.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I wanted to do a quick segment about the Bengals. I was on a run this morning, and I was listening to a podcast. They're talking about the Broncos win last night, talking about Bo Nix and how some people, very few people really like Bo Nix. But regardless, the Denver Broncos are 8-2, and that was kind of the onset of where we're at now, which is, I've said a million times on the show this week, being embarrassed in 6 of 7 games as the Cincinnati Bengals are. And I started thinking about the 6 losses that the Bengals have had against the entire NFC North: the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, and the Detroit Lions. And then, of course, a loss against the New York Jets and the Denver Broncos. And I started thinking about those 6 losses and how years ago, 2023, we would make excuses for. Really, up until this point, we've always made an excuse for why the Bengals hadn't achieved what they were set out to do. In 2023, when they didn't make the postseason, it was a banged-up Joe Burrow, and also they played the hardest schedule, which they did, in the history of the NFL. Last year, it was because a historically bad defense. And this year, as I put before, it's not a historically bad defense. It's a hilariously bad defense, and also Joe Burrow's hurt. Oh, and also, of the 6 teams that the Bengals have lost to, 5 of them currently sit with a winning record. And by the end of the season, we obviously know the 5-game stretch that the Bengals come out playing. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the Ravens twice, the New England Patriots, and the Buffalo Bills, all, by the way, except the Ravens aren't, but they will, more than likely, by the end of the year, be a above 500 team. And even though they're below 500, we know they're a really good team. There's a good chance that come season's end, at the end of 17 games, the Bengals would have played 12 of their 17 games against either teams in the postseason or teams with a winning record. And that's an excuse. It's kind of the culmination of the 3 excuses that we've seen the last 2 years, which is a hurt Joe Burrow, a banged up or a really bad defense, historically bad, not hilariously bad, and a tough schedule. But I'm here to say that those excuses don't buy you anything anymore. Tired of them. They've been used to keep guys in their current roles, in their current positions, guys like Duke Tobin, which he's feeling more pressure than he probably ever has as the director of player personnel, the de facto GM here in the league. And Zach Taylor, his seat's been hot before, but it's certainly getting hotter by the day and getting hotter by the loss. So those excuses have worn thin. But I'll also say this. When it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, it's pretty clear what the franchise's direction is. It's one that we all strongly disagreed with going into the trade deadline, which was, hey, this team's 3-6. They've got pieces that are expiring and probably won't be here next year. Let's see if we can either get a new GM or a new coach or trade off some of these pieces and get more draft picks to kind of set us up, not for 2025, but maybe 2026 or 2027 or the end of this current Joe Burrow window where he's still in the prime of his career and pray that he's healthy. And if we're not going down that path and we've got 8 games left of the season, we're at the midway point, we're at the bye, and the direction is we're going to try and win. We're going to try and go 7-1 on these final 8 games, 6-2. Pray that 9-8 gets you in the AFC North. Maybe go 5-1 or 6-0 in the AFC North and try to win the division. If that's going to be the case, then I guess I've got to be on board because that's the direction we're going. There's no point in fighting against it. And I'll say this. When it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals team, they have shown the capacity to lose to anyone, as we saw from their hilariously bad defense against the New York Jets, as we saw against playing Carson Wentz and that Minnesota Vikings team, which was the worst franchise loss. They've shown the capacity to lose any game. But I think we know deep down that with an offense as elite as it is, and we're hoping that Joe Flacco is going to be okay to play next week, with an offense as good as it is, maybe I'm a fool. Certainly wouldn't be the first time I've been called one. They can beat anybody, too. This offense has the capacity to put up mid-30 points against any team. And who knows, maybe the defense can get a turnover. Maybe something can fall our way. Lucky. And we don't need Joe Flacco to throw 470 every week, but we know that they're going to put up 30 points or right around that if he's playing back there. So if the road we're going down is that they want to win, I'm going to foolishly believe that they can beat anybody. Because I don't think it's that foolish at all. Yeah, the margins are thin. Yeah, this team is going to need to play really well to beat a team like the Buffalo Bills, to beat a team like the Baltimore Ravens, to beat a team like the New England Patriots. Things are going to have to go their way. But if we've seen the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns beat the Green Bay Packers, this Bengals team can rattle off 3 of 5. This Bengals team can do something fun over this next 5 games and put themselves at least in a position in that final 3-game stretch to make it exciting, make football exciting here in the Cincinnati for us Bengals fans. Stone. Thoughts on me flipping the script. I've been bagging them all week long. But your thoughts on me saying, hey, if this is the path we're going to go down, if we're going to try and win out, might as well be here for it. And might as well, and I don't think I'm that far off by thinking this team can beat any team that they place, any team that they play.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well, right? I mean, if you're a fan, why be miserable the rest of the way? I mean, they're probably going to make us feel miserable on a week-in, week-out basis, but the organization, they decided not to rip it up. There were some moves that we all thought should have been made. They weren't made. But, they're 3-6, and, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm going to turn on my TV. I'm going to watch. I'm going to prepare to be, put through a lot of pain. But I'm going to sit up there on the couch, and I'm going to watch it. And, look, I think there's some reason to be optimistic because of the offense, right? And I will say this about the defense. There will be a game sometime throughout the rest of the year where the defense still stinks, but they get a couple of turnovers, and that keeps the Bengals in the game. We saw that early on, right, against the Browns and the Jaguars. They'll do that 1 or 2 more times the rest of the way, and that'll be a win if the offense can continue being lights out with Joe Flacco. So, I mean, yeah, we're all frustrated. We're all ticked off, but if you have an offense that goes out there and is as good as this offense is, you might as well watch. You might as well cheer for the team. You might as well hope for the best. This isn't a situation like, a Pittsburgh Steelers offense of recent years where it's like they can't move the ball, they can't pick up a first down, and it's just miserable to watch. We were talking about this, I think, on Off the Bench, Boxed Lunch, where it's like, I mean, this team's still fun to watch. Yeah, they drive you nuts on defense, right, but it's exciting seeing them throw the ball to Jamar and Tee, go up and down the field. So I think we're all frustrated they didn't move off Trey Hendrickson, but we'll see if they can string together some wins and, get a worse draft pick.
We've seen crazier things in this sport. Man, you just said this defense is bad. Hilariously bad.
Correct.
we know that at some point they're going to, have 2 turnovers and maybe even get a defensive touchdown. Something crazy like that will happen at some point this year. Is it crazy to believe that there's just one game where we've seen Mike White put up 30 points in a random game? We've seen Gardner Minshew show out on random primetime television games. Is it crazy to think that on a random Sunday in December, this Bengals defense can hold a team to under 20 points?
No, not under 20. Maybe under 30, but not under 20. No way.
We'll see. They've done it once. They have done it one time this year. And maybe they'll do it again. They've held a team to, it's not even under 20. They've held a team to under 27 one time this year. I don't know. I understand fully that this opinion, that this proposition is a delusional take. I understand fully that that more likely than not, based off of the last 7 games that we've seen, this team is headed for a 5-12 season, a 6-11 season, or even a 7-10 season. Like, that is the most likely scenario. Probably somewhere around 6-11, if I had to guess. But if we are going to do this, they're clearly going for it. Like, there's clearly no one in that clubhouse, no one in the front office, no one in the coach's staff that is just going to be like, hey, we're gonna lose some games. We're not going to give our best foot forward, and we're going to try and save our jobs. Screw having an earlier draft pick. Like, we are going to try and beat these games, win these games. If that's the case, then I guess I will look at it from a rosy point of view, just to really get myself let down again. I've said this before on the show. I spend every single loss the same way. It's Sunday. I cannot believe I waste my time watching this team. Monday, I air my grievances like it's Festivus December 23rd. And, I fully am on board with tearing everything down, strip it down to its studs, and starting over. Then by about Friday or Saturday, when it's obviously this is a bye week, but by the time it's about time to play the next game, I wake up on Sunday morning, I play Welcome to the Jungle, I send it to every person I've ever talked to in my entire life, and I convince myself that the Bengals are going to win again. And I'm just warning you that if Joe Flacco doesn't play next week, which I think he will, but we'll see. If Joe Flacco doesn't play next week, it's a different story. But if Joe Flacco is playing next week, by Friday of next week, I'll fully convince myself that the Cincinnati Bengals will beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at the ketchup bottle, even though I know it's not called Heinz Field anymore. They'll win that game. I'll convince myself of it. And who knows? Maybe they'll beat the Patriots after that. And maybe they'll, beat the Bills and the Ravens. And this will get really exciting in a hurry. But I think we all know deep down that this is heading for 6-11. Hopefully, I'm in 2 weeks. From 2 weeks from right now, it is November 7th. 2 weeks from right now, I will be on my way, riding down I-75, stopping at every Buc-ee's that they have along the way and spending $37 at Buc-ee's because I love the place. And I'll be heading down to Fort Myers Beach, Florida. And on Sunday, when the Bengals play the New England Patriots, I'll be finding some bar on the beach to watch the Cincinnati Bengals play. And then that Thanksgiving, I'll be doing the same thing. And hopefully we're watching some exciting football. But I'll know deep down, even if they lose, I'll still be on the beach. So, guess I'll twist my brain. I'm just saying, we've seen teams do crazier things. We know this offense can beat anybody. And it really, 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 really feels like we can't see this defense play any worse. I feel like we keep saying that. We keep pushing the goalpost back. But it really feels like we can't see this defense play any worse. Maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe we'll all be surprised. The goal is to play excited. Same way that it is for the Reds. What's the goal been in the past 10 years, 12 years is, can you get me to football season? Can I be worried about the Reds games come September? Can I be worried about the Bengals games come Christmas? Can I be locked into those games? Or will I be wanting them to lose because I want them to get earlier and earlier in the draft? So it gives them a less likely chance of messing up a draft pick, because it seems like the only time that they can get on a good draft is if it falls right in their lap, a la Joe Burrow, a la Jamar Chase. We'll see. Yesterday, the Reds came out with their ballot for the Reds Hall of Fame. I don't know. When was the last time you've been in the Reds Hall of Fame, Stone? You been in there recently?
Not recently, no. It's been a long time, actually. Probably a decade, I'd say.
Easily over. I used to go there. Would force my dad to go there anytime I'd go to the game. I like that kind of stuff. It's funny that I went into broadcasting. And they have that booth there. I don't know. I truly don't know. I haven't been there since I was a kid. But they used to have that broadcasting booth where they'd play a highlight on the screen. You'd press the button, and then you could pretend to be the broadcaster in the booth. That's probably gone. That was there 15 years ago whenever I was a young kid. But it was a really, really neat thing to see when you're a kid. But they come out with their ballot of contemporary players that have played in my lifetime for the Cincinnati Reds, guys that I have watched, even not being a fan, guys that Stone has watched, guys that you guys have all watched. And from my understanding, 2 players will go in. The players are Brandon Phillips, Scott Rowland, Aaron Harang, Edison Volquez, Scott Cozart, Francisco Cordero, Mike Leake, and Homer Bailey. All 8 players that have established at some time or another a reason to be on this ballot. I mean, are they multiple time All-Stars? I know Scott Rowland's in the Hall of Fame. I know Brandon Phillips was a multiple time All-Star, even though Scott Rowland's time in Cincinnati was very short. But most of these guys were just, productive players in the league. Most of them got, if not all of them, got full pension in Major League Baseball, and that's worth noting because that means you're a big-time player. You get the full pension. I think it's 9.5 years to where you get that full pension. You get the lifetime card. You know about the Gold Pass? So when you get full pension,
yeah,
the MLB Players Association, I don't know who offers it out. They give you a card with your name
you told
on
me about
it.
this. Yes.
They give you a gold card with your name on it.
Yeah.
And you can show it at the box office of any game, and if they have a seat available, they'll give you a seat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really, really cool. I don't know how often they do it. I think I would just frame mine because let me put it this way. If I'm Brandon Phillips, you could get free tickets anyways. Like you can call up and just be like anyone and just be like, hey, can I get some free tickets? And they'll probably give them to you. You don't need the gold pass to be like, hey, I played 10 years in the major leagues. Can you give me a ticket? But it'd still be cool nonetheless. And the point of saying that is just these guys are, very talented baseball players. They made their stamp in the league. You don't play 10 years in the league without being very, very good. But 2 players can go on. And Stone, you and I were kind of shooting the breeze about what players. There's 2 that are going to get in from these 8 players. And is the Reds Hall of Fame the biggest deal in the world? No. But I can guarantee it means a heck of a lot to the players on this ballot. Because outside of Scott Rowland, none of them even have a snowball's chance in hell of making the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. So these are the kind of honors that they can really hang their hat on. They'll tell their grandkids about, or their grandkids will brag about at school someday. It seems like Brandon Phillips is a lock.
He's a lock.
So out of the 8 players, there's 1 that's getting in. Fan favorite, multiple-time All-Star. And honestly, he's had the best career out of any of them for the Cincinnati Reds. Out of all these players, he has had the best career. Do you have a take on who do you think should get the second spot?
I don't have a strong opinion. We talked about Aaron Harang. I think some people might forget about him. He was nasty. Tons of strikeouts. Great pitcher. So he's at the top of the list. But I always loved Zach Cozart. And him and BP up the middle with Votto at first. Lots of great memories. Didn't always have as many wins as you had hoped. But Zach Cozart was nasty at shortstop, and he was a good clutch hitter too as well. So I kind of want to say Zach Cozart. Maybe that's a hot take, but Harang certainly was a dog and definitely should get a lot of credit for that and some recognition as well.
Zach Cozart. I think I said Scott Cozart earlier. I meant Zach. Zach Cozart. That's a good pick. He probably had the, when you play shortstop in Major League Baseball, you're a creme de la creme type of player, and being able to play for that long, where he did for the Cincinnati Reds team, he was never the biggest name. Obviously, I think he started in the All-Star game in 2017. That's the old Joey Votto donkey story, I believe. Obviously, got to start in an All-Star game. Got paid to go to the LA Angels. Got paid very handsomely. I think it was like 3 years, $39 million. So that's a pretty good payday. I don't know if he's the next guy I would want. All these guys have their own kind of story. Mike Leake. He was one of the very few players to never play in the minor leagues. I don't know if you know this about Mike Leake. He's one of the very few players to never play in the minor leagues before playing in Major League Baseball. I always see this with foreign players all the time. Like Ichiro Suzuki didn't come and play in the minor leagues, but he played professional baseball over in Japan. Mike Leake went straight from Arizona State, was on the opening day roster, didn't play a single game in the minors. Got guys like Aaron Harang, who finished 4th place in Cy Young voting back in 2006 at Great American Ballpark with that defense. Very, very tough. And he was top 5 in strikeouts, I think, for like 3 consecutive years. And on a rotation that had some really bad pitchers, Aaron Harang was the one guy that you can go like, all right, the Harangutang's going to give you 6.5 innings. You got guys like, Homer Bailey, obviously had the 2 no-hitters. Scott Rowland's the best player of the remaining 7, but he spent, 3 years here? But if you want to talk about kind of storylines here, everyone looks at that trade of Edison Volquez for Scott Rowland to be kind of the turning point of when that, 2008, 2009 Reds, right? I think it was 2009 was when the trade was made. When that trade was when they went from, all right, we've got these young players, Jay Bruce, Joey Votto, Edison Volquez, Johnny Cueto's coming up. All these young guys are really talented. They're really good. Then you get a proven winner like Scott Rowland, and he kind of turned the tide of the franchise. That's not a bad pick. Only spent 3 or 4 years here, but they were 4 very productive years. Edison Volquez obviously had, I think in hindsight, it's a controversial trade, but I think it panned out for both. How Edison Volquez came to the Cincinnati Reds is the Reds traded away future MVP Josh Hamilton for Edison Volquez because they had a lot of good hitters and had not many good pitchers. And Edison Volquez comes over and is immediately at the top of that rotation to be an all-star. Francisco Cordero, I think he got a bad rap when he was here, but he was a really, really good closer. The thing about being a relief pitcher is people remember when you mess up far more than remember when you do something good. Francisco Cordero, Coco, was one of the best closers in the game when he was here in Cincinnati. If I had a vote, obviously Brandon Phillips is getting in, and then I would probably give it to Aaron Harang. He wasn't on those memorable teams. He wasn't on those teams that won the NL Central in 2010, went to playoffs in 2012, won 97 games in 2012. He wasn't on those teams, but he was still very, very. I guess he was on the 2010 Cincinnati Reds. I got that wrong. Just wasn't very good. He was traded away right after that, but I would give it to Aaron Harang, and if I didn't, I'd give it to Scott Rowland because I think Scott Rowland is also inevitable, even though he only spent a few years here, because he was that storyline of kind of turning the tide is important in the history of the Cincinnati Reds franchise. Out of those players, who was your favorite besides
BP.
Besides Brandon Phillips?
Either Cozart or Rowland. I love Scott Rowland, and what he was able to do from a leadership standpoint when he was here was awesome. Again, like you said, it was like 3 or 4 years. It wasn't long at all. And the issue with me putting him in the Reds Hall of Fame is, again, great run here in Cincinnati. It was awesome, but I think Scott Rowland, I think Cardinals. And that's the one team where it's like, wow, screw those guys.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah. But, I just remember growing up, BP, Cozart, and Votto, and Jay Bruce in the outfield. That was a great time in my life as a Reds fan.
Yeah, Brandon Phillips also was awesome because he made it a point of who he was. He wasn't just a player. He wasn't just a baseball player. Like, you could tweet out Brandon Phillips, hey, I play here in Westchester at 3. There's several stories where people would tweet at that dude BP and be like, hey, I play a 16U baseball game at 4 p.m. out in Westchester. Will you come to the game? And Brandon Phillips would show up to your game. He was more than just a ball player. I know there's people in the media that sometimes he didn't get along with. Obviously, he was a big personality, and you're not always going to get along with people when you're a big personality, and rightfully so. But he clearly made it a point to be a fan-friendly player, too, and that's why Brandon Phillips is so beloved here. I think Mike Leake was probably my favorite out of all those guys, just because I remember when Mike Leake was drafted, and now I'm just telling stories about the Cincinnati Reds, but I remember when Mike Leake was drafted. I think he was the 7th pick overall in the 2009 draft. He was selected, Arizona State, and there was a story that came out that he will be the best pitcher out of this draft. Of course, there was a guy that was picked first overall that had a much better career, Steven Strasburg. But I just remember thinking like, oh man, Cincinnati got the best player in the draft, and he goes out and starts as a rookie. Had kind of a middling rookie season, but eventually just found his way to being a big league pitcher for 10 years in the league, really from 2010 to 2020. But Mike Leake was always fun. He was always fun. Never a big strikeout guy, but he threw a lot of innings. He gave you a professional outing every single time. It'll be interesting. I don't know how this kind of divulges from here. I don't know. I know that it's a fan vote. I don't know if they announce it in a month. I don't know if there's another level to this, but get your votes out if you're a Reds fan. See your favorite players get into the Reds Hall of Fame, because, like I said, it's probably a really big deal for guys on this ballot, guys that they've moved on with their life. Baseball was obviously a big part of their guys. Mike Leake, Zach Cozart. It probably doesn't mean a whole lot to Scott Rowland, to be honest with you. It probably he's achieved some bigger things here as a professional ball player, but it obviously means a lot to all of these guys. So it'll be interesting to see who gets in.
Mike Leake could wheel that lumber too.
He could hit.
Yeah,
he could hit. I have his stats right in front of me. How many home runs do you think he had career?
Oh, 5?
6. 6 home runs. 2 home runs in 3 of 4 seasons. That's big time.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is when they were talking about the DH, it's something that we'll never see again, right? Like the DH is here, it's good. But one of the arguments for people that always wanted the DH was like, we'll never see pitchers. Isn't it awesome when Mike Leake or Madison Bumgarner hits a home run? I was like, what? Once a month we get a pitcher hit a home run, and that's valid enough to keep just this automatic out in the position? I always argued for an 8-man lineup. I always said that. All right, if I don't like the DH, I don't like the pitchers hitting, just bat 8 hitters and let Ellie De La Cruz get an extra 130 at bats throughout the season. You know what I'm saying? Like let Mike Trout, like Shohei Ohtani, let Aaron Judge get 130 extra at bats throughout the season. Just turn that lineup over quicker, and everyone's happy. You got to play the field to hit, and we're not gonna have pitchers batting 0-80, and especially some of the pitchers that would just stand up there and take it or bunt every single time. But I digress. Buy or sell here in the second half of the hour here on Off the Bench. These are, we put a good list together.
Yep.
Me and Stone, we put our brains together. We really got some good buy or sell. Some of them are Cincinnati. Then we'll stretch it on out to the NFL as a grand. But buy or sell, Joe Flacco finishes the season as the Bengals starter.
Ooh. Bye. I don't think you're going to win enough to have Burrow in a spot where he comes back. I think Burrow will want, I don't know, Joe obviously, but I think he would want to come back even if you're eliminated, just to play a few games and maybe, get that feel again and get some momentum going into 26. But if you're eliminated, he gets hurt. And it's like, what if he gets hurt again in one of the final games and he's missing training camp? Can't afford that. So, let's just roll this thing out with Flacco. And, look, your defense is – even if Joe's out there, Burrow, your defense is so bad. Like, you're not going to, be able to perform at a high level as a team and win games. So, unfortunately, I'm going to buy that.
I'm going to sell it. Here's the reason I'm going to sell it. I think there's a lot of variables that can equal out in Joe Flacco not finishing this year as a starter. One of them is we don't even know if he's healthy. Zach Taylor said, I don't even know if Joe Flacco can hold up his arm. Obviously, his shoulder's having those problems. I think he'll still probably play. But he's banged up. Joe Burrow, I don't think, comes back if the Bengals are in a losing season, which all points lead that way, unless they have something to play for. One, I don't think he will play. And 2, I don't want him to play. I don't want him to come back to win 3 meaningless games at the end of the season. So I'm selling it because I think there's too many variables. Joe Flacco's health, Joe Burrow's health, the Bengals season all together. All those variables, I think that Joe Flacco will not finish this season as the starting quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. I said that a lot of these questions were Bengal or Cincinnati related. We got a few more Bengals. Buy or sell, Trey Hendrickson is traded before the 2026 draft. I'll start this one off selling this one. He's going to get tagged. We're going to fight this entire offseason once again, and they'll probably, if I had to guess, they'll probably figure out a 2-year deal for him at that point, which it'll just seem silly because then we'll just be looking at, we didn't want to give him a 3-year deal last year, but now we'll give him a 2-year deal on top of the year that he's playing this year. I'm selling this one. I don't think it gets traded before the 2026 draft.
Yeah, they're not going to trade him. But I also don't. Craig's all over that too. It's a great point. It wouldn't be surprising, but my guess is they're ready to be done, and they're not going to tag him either. But we'll see on that. But yeah, if they were going to trade him, they had a perfect opportunity before the year, and they had a perfect opportunity at the deadline. They didn't do it. So,
all right, Jamar Chase wins the Triple Crown once again. He is currently second in receiving yards behind JSN, who went to a bum school. He's currently he's 10th in the league in touchdowns, 3 behind Devontae Adams. But I believe he's catches. He's going to be in first place if I had to guess. Yeah, he's in first place by 15 catches. Buy or sell, Jamar Chase wins the Triple Crown once again.
This year I'll sell. I think he'll win it again at some point in his career. But I don't know. With the Flacco injury, yeah, it's been really good for a few weeks, but I think that injury is really, really bad. And I'm not a doctor. I don't know how long this thing's going to linger, but that certainly will impact him because if Browning's out there, he's not going to be close as far as the Triple Crown goes. I think he'll win it again with Burrow. But this year, JSN's on a tear for Seattle, and they just got Rashid Shaheed at the deadline, so I think that's going to even open up JSN more. He's going to have a lot of yards. Seattle's real, by the way. They're a really good football team. And, from a touchdown perspective, he'll have those down-the-field shots. But I feel like in the red zone, teams have done a little bit better against him this year, and they've looked to different guys. So I'll sell this year, but he'll win it again at some point.
NFC West, that best division in football?
Yeah.
More than the NFC North?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you. I think there's more legit teams. Like I think all the teams are pretty comparable in the NFC North. Like the Vikings, if JJ McCarthy can play well, I think that's a good team. I think the Bears are an okay team, and obviously I truly do believe that the Lions and Packers are Super Bowl contenders, but that NFC West is really good. Between the Rams, might be the best team in the league. 49ers, they're banged up, but they just continue to win games, and the Seahawks are legit. And who knows? Maybe Jacoby Brissett opens up a new level of Marv Harrison Jr. and Phoenix. That's the final Bengals buy or sell. So I know you're a big footy fan. I know you love yourself some liquid footy. Buy or sell, FCC wins on Saturday against the Columbus Crew.
Buy?
Yeah!
Let's go! Why would I sell that? I mean, come on. We need it. It's a fellow Ohio team. I mean, that's got to be a rivalry, right? I mean, Columbus.
It is the hell is real rivalry.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and sell that. Are you kidding me?
No.
Evander. Selling Tano in the net. They're going to take care of business in this game. We'll see what happens beyond that, but they're not going to. They're a better team. They'll take care of business.
You went further than I did by just naming 3 players. Like I didn't even have that in the bag. I'm going, yeah, I'll buy it. Come on. Back home, the winning team has won the first 2 matches. We'll win this one, and we'll continue on in the tournament. By the way, MLS, where the schedule is just made up and it doesn't make any sense. The first round of the tournament is a 3-game series. Every round going forward, where the games mean more, where the matches mean more, is just a one-game series, one-match series. So it's just winner moves on after this one. That doesn't make a lick of sense. Just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The Bearcats finish the football season, or the Bearcats make the Big 12 championship. I'm selling this one. I don't think they're gonna be able to take down BYU at home. But man, that would be really, really exciting if they could just get to the Big 12 championship game. Buy or sell, Bearcats playing the Big 12 championship.
I'll sell as well. I'm not gonna say they're fraudulent, but just getting whipped like they did on Saturday, that was not competitive. Utah, who I thought was going to win the Big 12 going into the year, they had some slip-ups throughout the season here to this point, and that was not close at all, start to finish. So I'm not going to completely say no shot they lose or no chance they beat BYU. I think there is an opportunity, but I think we'll have a close eye on the game here this week. Texas Tech, BYU. As it feels like Texas Tech is going to win that game. Vegas obviously has them favored by 10 points. And then, that puts a little bit more energy and juice into BYU, who – again, I don't want to call them fraudulent, but they play from behind a lot. They're very reliant on, fourth quarters and outplaying their opponents significantly in the fourth quarter. That's not a recipe that you can really lean on. You had a true freshman quarterback who's been solid, but if you put him in a spot here on the road and he's behind, I feel like they're going to struggle a little bit against Texas Tech. So I'm not going to write them off entirely. I don't think that would be appropriate, but as far as a buy or sell goes, I'll probably sell.
Yeah, I think it's too stacked against them. And anyways, if you would have asked a Bearcats fan coming into this year, they now have 2 losses. Let's say they lose one of their last few games. That BYU game is the most likely, though I believe they might even be. It's going to be a really tough game against Arizona at home as well, going on the road to TCU. If you would have told Bearcats fans before the year 8-4, 9-3, every single Bearcats fan that you would talk to absolutely would have taken that. 100% would have taken that. So let's hope they finish out strong. Let's hope they make it exciting. And who knows, maybe they'll be playing in that final game of the season down in TCU, down in Texas, to go to the Big 12 championship game. But they gotta get it done at home against 2 tough teams in Arizona and BYU over the next, not this weekend, but the 2 following weekends. Final Cincinnati-themed buy or sell that I have for you. This Bearcats team, the Cincinnati Bear Kittens of the Hardwood, who play tonight against the lauded, what is it, Georgia State? Is
Correct.
That the lauded Georgia State. The UC Bearcats from the Big 12 will be ranked come January. Buy or sell?
It's November. Come January, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. Look, I know they played the Catamounts, right?
The Catamounts of Western Carolina,
correct.
that's right.
And look, this year they actually have some difficult non-conference games. Obviously playing Dayton again. By the way, that's at Fifth Third. They're not doing the Heritage Bank thing, thank goodness. So that'll be a challenge. We still obviously don't know where Dayton's at. Louisville, that's going to be a really tough game. Georgia, Clemson, I think, too, also on their schedule. So we're going to know a little bit more about this team. That's all that before the crosstown shootout there, I believe. But I'm in on this team here with those 3 guys that they have. This freshman, Sean Abayev, he's a 5-star guy, got a lot of hype. Really liked what I saw from him. Again, Western Carolina, take it with a grain of salt. Baba Miller he looks like an NBA player to me. And, he was at FAU, obviously, last year. Right. And he's a really good player. He's a versatile player. He can get to the rim. He can shoot it. He can defend. And Mustafa Chiam as well is also another guy that is a real presence there and a rim protector for him. So I'm kind of in on them. I got some questions with their depth here at this point, but look, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win the Big 12, but I think it's time. It's time for Wes Miller to make the tournament. I think he does it this year. The Big 12 obviously is always going to be difficult in the sport of basketball, but here, 1 game in, yeah, I'll buy it.
Baba Miller is a Chatterbox alum.
What?
We have broadcasted, Chatterbox Sports has broadcasted a game in which Baba Miller has played. Last year we did the Athletes in Action tip-off up in Xenia, and Baba Miller played for Florida Atlantic. And even watching him in that one game that they had, it was like a tiny little high school gym, but it was really cool. He looked just head and shoulders, pun intended, because he's incredibly tall forward. Head and shoulders just looked better than everyone they're playing. I think they're playing Valparaiso, and it was a bloodbath. That might have been Florida Atlantic. They might have been playing Indiana State, but Baba Miller had a heck of a game. And we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to sell because they're going to lose at Cintas Center against a bad Muskies team
right.
in December.
Yeah.
Hey, the last time UC's won at Cintas Center?
A long time.
It's been like 2000. I think it was the year that the Cintas Center opened up. So about the year you were born. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. And our Muskies look really good. Our Muskies undefeated.
Yeah.
They look really, really good.
Yeah.
Paul Fritschner on the call last night. I was watching the game for a little bit on ESPN Plus. Friend of the show, obviously former employee here at Chatterbox Sports. We'll have to get Paul on sometime soon to talk. He does the Rebound Rundown. Talk about not just Xavier, but all the local teams, and he's kind of pick his brain about his blossoming broadcasting career, which he's getting more games. He's going to be getting some important games here on ESPN Plus, and maybe some more exciting things. So we're going to talk about Paul once again. All right, that wraps up kind of the Cincinnati. I don't know what's going on with Molly in the chat, but she just sent a gift membership to a bunch of people in the chat. So shout out to Molly. Thank you so much, guys, every day for watching this. I haven't told Stone this plan yet, but Obviously, Fridays, typically when we do some members content, we do box lunch. We are going to do that right after his show at 12 o'clock. I've got a place to be. I've got to do a broadcast out up at Oxford. Got to do a swimming and diving. So I got to be on the move. But right at 12 o'clock, we're going to do 30 minutes and have some fun together for the members. Might even go a little bit longer, but I do have to get on the road. But I do wanted to do that for the members, so everyone tune in to that. All right, final 15 minutes of the show. We're going to be talking about some NFL stuff. I know this is kind of what you talk a lot about on the show, but we kind of stick on off the bench a lot about the Bengals, sometimes about the Reds, local things, and then we'll branch out to other NFL topics here in the final 15 minutes. I don't know if I ever got your opinion. I know you certainly did it on your show. I don't know if I ever got your opinion on the Sauce Gardner trade that happened earlier this week, because there's sometimes push notifications come across your phone, and you just sit there and go like, what the hell is this? I hope Chase Wellman's in the chat today, because I know he's a Colts fan. I believe he's a Colts fan. I don't know how any Colts fan can be confident with that trade. Giving away 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner seems like an incredibly misuse of capital in your front office. I don't know what your opinion was on that trade.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was a big-time mistake for Indianapolis. I get it from a Jets perspective. They needed to completely blow the thing up. Unfortunately for the Jets, they're going to be bad for several more years now. They'll probably always be bad, to be completely honest. But, the Colts here this year, you were winning a bunch of games, and you kind of put yourself in a spot where it's like, oh, this is going to be a successful year no matter what. Well, you just put a ton of pressure on yourself. Now, all of a sudden, you make a move like this, you give up 2 first-round picks. You've gone all in on Daniel Jones, number 1, but it kind of feels like AFC Championship or bust a little bit for this team here at this point, and I don't understand. Go ahead.
It's just wild because Chris Ballard obviously was on the chopping block coming into this year.
Yeah.
But the way this team has played, he saved his job.
Yeah.
And he just goes and does, like, it wasn't like it was a Hail Mary before the season to save your job. And if it doesn't work out, not your problem. That's someone else's problem to deal with. He already saved his job by the season that they were having. There was no world in which Chris Ballard was going to lose his job unless they lost the last 6 games and didn't make the postseason. Unless that happened, then he'd lose it. But it would detract from this. So it seemed like a Hail Mary when you were already winning by 2 touchdowns. Like, it seems like you were up 2 scores in the fourth quarter and you're just heaving it downfield for no reason. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't. And look, when you make a trade like that, you need to be trading for an all-world caliber player. And look, not to disrespect Sauce, I know he's a Cincinnati guy, but he's not the best corner in the National Football League. Remember when the Rams took that swing on Jalen Ramsey? Well, Jalen Ramsey was top dog there at that point. That's not the case here with Sauce Gardner. He's a bigger guy. He's a physical corner, but it's not like he's got the speed to mirror some of these, top-of-the-line receivers. And, you've seen him get called for some more PI here at this point in his career. This isn't the Sauce Gardner that we saw come out of Cincinnati his first couple of years where he was unstoppable. He's kind of struggled a little bit over the past couple of years. And he's a great talent, and you pair him with Charvarius Ward on the other side for Indy if he can come back from his injury. But I just don't think Sauce Gardner is worth 2 first-round picks in a day and age where picks are such highly coveted, aspects of a football team, and you're just going to give away 2 first-rounders for a cornerback. That's another thing. Like, even if it's the best cornerback in the National Football League, I don't think that's a position that you can, equate to 2 first-round picks regardless of who it is. It's not like it's a pass rusher or an interior presence on your defensive line or a left tackle, right, or a quarterback. It's a corner. Injury-prone position, kind of left scratching my head there at that move. But we'll see. If the Colts go on to go to the AFC Championship, you got to tip your hat and say, nice move.
And it's a guy who's trending kind of downwards, right? When Sauce first broke into the league, he was obviously an electric player, but he's left a little to be desired over the past year and a half. So it is a really interesting move. It really is an interesting move. Now the Colts in their mind probably think, hey, we're going to be picking in the late 20s over the next 2 years anyways. I'm willing to give that up for a premier. And to their defense, there is a shortage of cornerbacks in the league. You look around the league, there's no teams have 2 lockdown corners. No teams do. So there is a shortage in the league at that position. I don't know why that is, but it just seems to be that there is a shortage at cornerback. We'll see how it plays out, but I just don't foresee how this is happening, especially when you got it's not like you have Joe Burrow or like you have Daniel Jones who's playing well. The team looks good, but it's like, can you bank on Daniel Jones to always be playing at this high of a level? I don't think so. I don't think so. So I'll ask this question now. Buy or sell? New England Patriots or the Indianapolis Colts finish the season with the 1 seed in the AFC?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I'll buy. I'll buy here at this point. The Chiefs, obviously, they're going to be a playoff team, but the AFC Championship's not going to be played at Arrowhead Stadium. They're not going to be the number 1 overall seed here this year, which I think is very beneficial for a lot of NFL fans and the NFL in general, apart from the people that are members of, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs. Buffalo feels kind of like the best team in the AFC. I know I had the Patriots at 1 in my power rankings, which was a little that ruffled some people's feathers there. But I'm a big believer in New England. And you take a look at their schedule, and they're capitalizing, right? They had the weakest schedule in the NFL here this year, and they're taking advantage of it. They're winning a bunch of games. They got their quarterback figured out. That defense is really good. They got their head coach figured out. They're going to continue to win a lot of games. They got a test here this week against Tampa. We'll see how that goes on the road down in Florida. But, yeah, I'll buy that. Either the Colts or the Patriots will be the number 1 overall seed, which we would have been crazy to say that going into the year. But here as we sit, November 7th, I'll buy it for now.
Yeah, it's hard to sell it because the only 2 other options would be the Denver Broncos or the Buffalo Bills. And the Denver Broncos are 8-2, so they're already ahead of the game. But it feels like they're playing in the AFC West. They got to play the Chiefs they got to play the Chiefs both times. They got to play the Chargers one more time. They got to play the Jaguars and the Packers. Like, those could all be losses, especially with the way that Bo Nix played last night. So the only other team would then leave the Bills. And the Bills just obviously got a big win, but they look inconsistent. So giving me both those teams, I'll sell it for the sake of argument. You already bought it. I'll sell it and say that either one of the teams from the AFC West or the Buffalo Bills win it. I mean, the Steelers the Steelers aren't doing it. What am I talking about? Steelers are losing next Sunday, so they ain't going to get it. So I'll sell it because I think that the overall, I think Josh Allen and the Bills will come out on top, especially the next time that they play. Matthew Stafford wins the National Football League Most Valuable Player Award. Buy or sell, Stone?
Ooh, that's a good one. He deserves a lot of love for it. He definitely should be up for the award here at this point. I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I'll buy that right now. Look, the Rams are tremendous. McVay, it's just a well-oiled machine. Les Snead, the GM, calling the shots. He's been doing it for a really long time. They got pieces all over the place. You got some concerns about Puka Nacua and his health, right? But it's a really good defense. It's a young defense. And, Stafford, what he's doing in the NFL right now is unbelievable. Remember in camp, he really wasn't much of a factor because he had the back, and people were like, well, how's he going to look? How's he going to hold up? And he's done a tremendous job and deserves a lot of praise. I mean, look, if he wins another Super Bowl, I think he's a Hall of Famer right now.
Okay, so I was going to ask you that. Do you think, the season could end today and he's a Hall of Famer?
I think so, but that's probably a borderline hot take here at this point. But if he wins another Super Bowl, he, without question is. I mean, you talk about guys that, have won 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that list isn't very long. So, I think the world of Matthew Stafford, after what happened in 21, I kind of hated him for a little bit just because, that was a sucky game. But, he's unbelievable. And, I mean, his arm still has so much life to it. And you see quarterbacks, and that's why Brady was able to play so long. Mentally, he is so good. You're not going to fool him. You got a bunch of young quarterbacks in the league where these smart defensive coordinators can fool you from time to time. Matthew Stafford does not get fooled out there, and he can still move around within the pocket. He's not moving outside of the pocket, but from within the pocket, he still has some mobility. His arm has a ton of life. His accuracy is really second to none. So I'll buy it here at this point. Matthew Stafford playing tremendous football. Rams, great football team.
You know what's wild? I just looked at Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford in his career has received MVP votes just one time. He's gotten one singular MVP vote in his entire career. Guys like Dak Prescott, guys like Jared Goff, guys like Trevor Lawrence, guys like even Brock Purdy have had more MVP votes throughout their career, which is absolutely astonishing because I'm with you. I think if Matthew Stafford retired today, he finished this season out, whatever happens, then he retired, he'd be a Hall of Famer. He's got the Super Bowl win, first overall pick, has been good. He's got the numbers. He's got the way. He didn't have the playoff success till he came over to L.A. But I think he will. I think he will because I look at across the league. I think Patrick Mahomes looked good at certain times. Obviously, I don't think anybody really has any faith in guys like Daniel Jones or Brock Purdy or Jay Leonard to win that MVP award. I don't think there's a running back that's gonna take it. So yeah, I think Matthew Stafford is the most. Baker Mayfield was a very popular pick early on in the year. That's kind of gone down quite considerably. Maybe Josh Allen will be a hero for the final 2 months, but I think Matthew Stafford wins the NFL MVP award, and therefore cementing it not just in the minds of me and Stone, but across the world that he belongs in Canton someday.
And look, the thing about him, too, as well, is people – like, he's been this guy. It's just he was in Detroit for so long, and that was just a complete mess there at the time. Imagine this. Imagine if he was in Green Bay instead of Aaron Rodgers. How do you think his career – how do you think people would view his career?
Well, we talk about this all the time. I feel like it's conflicting argument when I talk about quarterbacks. Because I understand that when you have a guy like Joe Burrow, when you have a guy like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, your team is so far ahead of the 8 ball. Like, you are so far ahead when it comes to putting out a competitive product and being a championship contender. Like, I think you truly need one of those players to really put yourself, like, it is such, you're graded on a curve when you have a player like that. I also fully understand that a guy like Patrick Mahomes isn't Patrick Mahomes that we know today if he doesn't go to the Kansas City Chiefs that have already been making the postseason for the last 7 years and have one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach of all time. Like, Matthew Stafford goes to Sean McVay and finds another level. Like, those are important, but you're absolutely right that if Matthew Stafford went to Sean McVay when he was a first overall pick in 2008, like, if there was a Sean McVay that was 33 years old in 2008 and was the Lions coach, like, we'd be talking about Matthew Stafford in the same way that we'd be talking about guys like Aaron Rodgers. I truly believe that. That's the kind of talent that he has. He just went to a perennial loser like the Detroit Lions. It's unfortunate. These guys, and for what it's worth, when it comes to those franchises, the only way to dig yourself out of the hole when you're the Bengals, when you're the Browns, when you're the Lions, when you're these loser franchises, and we are a loser franchise. I love them to death. We are a loser franchise. The only way to dig yourself out of a hole is by getting someone generational like a Matthew Stafford, or like we have Joe Burrow, or you get a guy like Sean McVay, or you get a guy in the Chargers case like Jim Harbaugh. Like, the Patriots weren't a successful franchise. They were not a successful franchise before the year of our Lord 2000. They get Bill Belichick, and we're going to forever remember them as this great franchise because they had the greatest dynasty in the most competitive sport in the world. Also, I was actually thinking about this. This isn't in my buy or sells, but do you think that the Chiefs have done enough over the last 6 years? Like, we still hold the Cowboys to a light because of what they did in the 90s. We are going to need 3 decades of the Patriots being bad before we start thinking of that's the Patriots. Like, that, they're a loser franchise. The Green Bay Packers, for what they did, I mean, they've won throughout our lifetime, but it was very early on that they established themselves in the same way that the Pittsburgh Steelers have. Do you think the Kansas City Chiefs have established that even if when Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are done and they go through a decade of losing, do you think they'd still be held in the same category that we look at the 49ers, the Steelers, the Packers, all these teams that have been perennial winners?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Mahomes going to play for he's got a lot more years left in him, so he's just going to keep getting better and better and better, I think. I still think at times you can kind of – I was talking about this with Stafford. Sometimes, rarely, very rarely, but sometimes it's like Mahomes, it's like, you may have fooled him there. That might not have been the best decision there. I mean, when he gets to the point where, like, Stafford and Brady late in his career where you just can't do anything to trick him, I mean, look out. But, at some point he's going to be the quarterback and Andy Reid's not going to be the head coach. That's just inevitable. That's going to happen. But, I mean, the success that they've had, and they're going to be – it's the next dynasty after the Patriots, and I think they'll be highly regarded as a winning organization. And they won before him, right? They didn't win Super Bowls with Alex Smith, but they won a lot.
Yeah, but no one thought of them as the same way that we think, like nowhere near where we think of them now. But like we didn't think of them the same way that we thought of the Packers or the Steelers or something like that. And there are cases in the NFL where we've seen former dynasties, like the Cowboys are just so well run, or not well run, but are so popular that we'll never think of them, even though they haven't been. They have the longest stretch of making a championship game in the NFL. I still, in my brain, think of them, oh, that's the Cowboys. And I just wonder if in 20 years, if the Chiefs are bad and bad and bad and bad, if we're still going to think of them as the way that we think of them right now. And like I said, there are examples of the NFL of teams that at one point were wagons that are no longer thought of in the same way. Look at the Miami Dolphins, Shula, Dan Marino. At one point, that was the creme de la creme in the NFL. Look at the Commanders. The Washington Redskins were really good for several decades, like championship contenders, and won several championships. The New York Giants. New York Giants have won. I think they've won a championship in every decade, besides this one. So, there are examples of teams that are no longer thought of, this elite franchise in the same way that we think of the Packers, Steelers, 49ers, go down the list. But I agree. I think the Chiefs will forever be remembered for this, even if they go through 2 decades of, losing or just not winning. And there's a difference. Stone Shield Show coming up here right now. Thank you guys so much for this week. I'll be back on Monday. Had a lot of fun. I did not tell Stone this. I told him live on the show. But my plan is right when his show is done for the members, we'll have a little powwow before I got to go up to Oxford and do that swimming and diving meet for Miami. See you guys later. Go Redhawks, I guess, because that's where I'm going to be today. See you guys.
Here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show here on a Friday, rainy Cincinnati, Ohio. Appreciate everybody sticking around throughout Off the Bench into our show. Got a loaded show here on a Friday. We'll talk Thursday Night Football. What an ugly game that was if you stayed up for that. I watched the first half and then a bit of the third quarter, and I was like, this is putting me to sleep, and it literally was doing just that. Bo Nix, the Denver Broncos, they keep winning games, right? They keep climbing the AFC West standings, but, offensively they've got some issues, and they might have a quarterback issue, actually, there as well with Bo Nix. We'll talk about the Thursday night game. Raiders, they're in shambles, right? Going to be interesting to see what they do directionally as an organization going forward, right? Pete Carroll, he's in his 70s. Do you bring him back? Spytek, obviously the new GM. Brady, part owner. They got a lot of decisions to make here this offseason. They went with Geno Smith, and when you have a bad team and then you pick Geno Smith to lead your bad team, you're going to have bad results on the football field, and that's what Vegas is dealing with here at this point. So we'll talk about the Thursday night football game. Also, Richard Skinner, Local 12. He's going to stop by here in about 10 minutes. We'll talk Cincinnati Bengals going into the bye week. I'll ask him about the trade deadline. He wrote a column for local12.com kind of detailing his thoughts. We'll ask him about that. ask him about Duke Tobin. We'll ask him about Zach Taylor. We'll ask him about Joe Flacco, Joe Burrow. List goes on and on and on. The draft picks, right? Shamar Stewart. So certainly looking forward to that conversation. Al Golden there as well. So looking forward to talking to Skinny and getting him on the show. That's coming up in about 10 minutes. Also, we do it every Friday, our college football weekend preview. We've got 5 games we're going to be breaking down here on this show. Indiana, Penn State. Indiana, number 2 team in the country. They got to go to Happy Valley. 14.5-point spread. Not anticipating that to be a super competitive game, but Penn State obviously does still have some dudes on their team. UC fans, you're locked in at noon on Saturday. BYU, 7th-ranked team in the country, goes to Texas Tech. Top 10 matchup in Lubbock. That should be really good. It's at noon there as well. I'm a little bit higher on Texas Tech than the committee is. I kind of had these two teams flipped, but I understand BYU is undefeated, and that certainly is something to hang your hat on, right? But there's a reason why Texas Tech is favored by 10 points. And then my favorite game of the weekend, Oregon and Iowa. The Ducks go to Kinnick Stadium in Des Moines. Really tough place to play. That crowd's going to be rocking. The weather's going to be cruddy for that game. It's going to be rain. It's going to be cold rain, potentially some sleet there at the end of that contest. 6.5-point spread in favor of the Ducks. There's been a lot of people that have gone out this week, myself included. Kirk Herbstreit was doing it on the McAfee show the other day saying, Oregon might be in trouble. They might lose that game, so we'll preview that one. Texas A&M and Missouri. Texas A&M goes on the road. They've been the best road team in the country so far this season. We'll see if they can keep the momentum going here. They're 3rd in the country. They're undefeated. Marcel Reed playing at a high level. We'll see if they can go to Mizzou and keep that good momentum going. LSU, Alabama. LSU obviously in shambles. Brian Kelly is fired. The team's a train wreck. The defense looked like going to be one of the best defenses in the country. Whit Weeks gets hurt. Now the defense absolutely stinks. So they're a complete mess. But it's one of those games where everything goes out the window, right? You see it with Ohio State and Michigan. You certainly see it with the Iron Bowl. LSU, Alabama, certainly not on the same level as Alabama, Auburn, right? But this is one of those games where it's like, records kind of out the door at this point. So I think, you're seeing it with the spread. It's only 9.5, right? It feels like it probably should be like 13-14 just based on, how these teams have performed and the talent. But it's a rivalry game. Everything goes out the window. That's at 7:30 in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. We'll preview that as well. Best bets of the weekend. We need a bounce back week. Last week was not our week. 5 plays coming your guys' way here on this show. So stick around for that. We'll talk Luke Fickell if there's some time at the end of today's show. Maybe get in the comments section there as well, answer some questions. By the way, we will do mailbags here on this show going forward. But in order to get your mailbag questions in, you need to DM the show's either Twitter or Instagram. We're working on getting the Instagram page up right now. Instagram is at the Stone Shield Show. There's no posts over there, so if you don't want to use that account, that's totally fine. But we're going to do mailbag. But in order for us to do the mailbag, we got to get questions. So the show, follow me on Twitter. It's at StoneShields_. But don't DM me. DM the show at the Stone Shields. If you want any mailbag questions, I would love to do that, a segment each and every week. But obviously, we need questions to come in order for that to happen. So if you're interested in doing mailbags, if you're interested in me answering some questions that you may have, whether it be Bengals, Reds, or national stuff there as well, we can do it. But you gotta DM. You gotta DM the show either on Twitter or Instagram at the Stone Shield Show on Instagram, at the Stone Shields on Twitter. Again, we'll work going forward on getting that Instagram page up and running here. But let's start with Thursday Night Football. Let's start with Bo Nix. Start with Sean Payton, the Denver Broncos. 10-7 was the final in that game. And, Denver's now 8-2 on the year, climbing the AFC West standings. But there's a reason why when we do our power rankings, I got Denver just hanging around that 10 spot, and I have. That defense is for real. It might be the best defense in the National Football League. Obviously, the Houston Texan defense is really, really good, and obviously the Seattle Seahawks defense is really, really good. But at all levels of that defense, you got issues, right? So if you're Vance Joseph and that Denver Bronco defense, Zach Allen continues to be one of the most underrated players in the league, right? And then you got Cooper there, rushing the passer as well. Nick Benino at that linebacker spot. He's tremendous. And then you get the two guys from the Niner defense. And that Niner defense, went to Super Bowls, right? With Talanoa Hufanga at that safety spot. The Bengals could certainly use him. He's not on a cheap deal by any stretch of the imagination, but he is an incredible player. Great in the run game, great in the pass game, athletic, twitchy. twitchy, cerebral, you name it. He's a great football player. And Dre Greenlaw there as well, also coming in from the San Francisco 49ers. And they played that game last night. I understand it's Vegas. I understand they traded their best receiver in Jacoby Myers at the deadline, kind of leading into that game. I totally understand that, but no Patrick Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year. Oh, yeah, that guy's pretty good. He wasn't even playing in the game last night either. So they just got dudes all over that defense. They create havoc, and seeing them play in a game like last night and then kind of comparing and contrasting that to what you've seen from the Cincinnati Bengals, it just looks like they're playing a different sport, to be completely honest with you. So that defense is going to keep them in football games, always. And they're going to give them a chance to win football games, even against high-powered offenses, even against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Buffalo Bills. It will keep them in the game. I understand they played the Las Vegas Raiders last night. But you might have some issues there at that quarterback position. And I'll be completely honest with you. You know, Bo Nix, you remember the draft a couple of years ago, right? There was 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12 picks. Just kind of record-breaking stuff there as far as quarterbacks flying off the board there in the first round. And Bo Nix was the last one of those group of quarterbacks to go. And I sat there and said, he's going to be the best one. I think Bo Nix is going to be the best quarterback, and I thought Drake May was going to be second. And mind you, this is, Penix, McCarthy, Daniels, Caleb Williams are the other quarterbacks here in this draft class. And I'm not completely out on Bo Nix here at this point, but I did say, and I've said this all year, Bo Nix is regressing in year 2. And people talk about the sophomore slump all the time, and you hear about it, you read about it, but you're seeing it here with Bo Nix. And, some of the stuff he did at Oregon was a lot of, passes behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of quick game stuff, a lot of relying on his athleticism out of the pocket. He's never been a guy that can hang his hat on being an accurate thrower of the football, and that's really costing him. And, this is Sean Payton's guy, right? It's funny kind of hearing how Sean Payton talks about Bo Nix versus how he talked about Russell Wilson, right? Russell Wilson was not Sean Payton's guy. He took the job in Denver, but he didn't bring Russell Wilson with him. He wasn't calling for Russell Wilson saying, I want Russ to be my quarterback, and things were ugly before it even started between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. And, hearing the dialogue now when he talks about Bo Nix, he's being a little bit more patient with him. He understands, obviously, he's got to play better, but he's like, he'll be fine. He's got to, work some things out. He's talking like that because Bo Nix is his guy, right? He took him in the first round, and a round where quarterbacks were flying off the board, and he said he wanted Bo Nix, and he took him. Bo Nix had an incredible rookie year, right? They were able to make the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. That is certainly something that is very significant. And then they got to the playoffs and played the Buffalo Bills and got the doors blown off them. Got lit up like a Christmas tree there in that football game. But it'll be interesting to see, because the pressure is going to continue to go up on Bo Nix here over the course of the next few weeks, right? Because Denver's in a spot. They can win a world title if they get competent quarterback play. That is not an exaggeration by any stretch, right? That defense is an all-world, all-league defense, and they just got guys there offensively that are playing good football too. And you look at the offensive line, it's not like he doesn't have good quality protection. It's a solid offensive line. They can run the football a little bit with Harvey and Dobbins, kind of that tandem in the backfield. They've got receivers, Cortland Sutton, he can still win one-on-one. The youngster, Troy Franklin, his buddy from Oregon, he's in a spot where he's a really good player there as well. And you look, and you just kind of checking the box, right? Everybody across their defense, check, check, check. Offensive line, check. Run game, check. And then you get to the head coach, and you're like, that's an absolute check as well in Sean Payton. And I think people are really, and this is kind of the first time that was a national stage for Bo Nix, a lot of eyeballs on him, and he's relied on fourth quarter brilliance a lot throughout the season to this point. And you were kind of sitting there watching that second half like, okay, when are they going to turn it up? Oh, their defense made a play. They got good field position, right? When are they going to turn this thing up and start scoring some points here? And it just never really ended up transpiring for the Denver Broncos offense last night. I think if you're a Bronco fan, you're definitely very concerned. You look at that division, you have a lead, right? But we all think the Chiefs are coming to some degree, right? And the Chargers, they got a tough one against Pittsburgh here on Sunday, but you think they're a good football team there as well, despite the fact that Herbert's without his tackles here at this point. So Denver, they check a lot of boxes. All they need is competent quarterback play. Imagine this. Imagine Joe Flacco on this Denver football team. You'd be sitting there going, oh, that is a real threat here at this point. But we all talk about the quarterback position, the most important position in sports. They check off all the other boxes. But Bo Nix right now, he's regressing in year 2. He clearly doesn't trust himself here at this point. He doesn't trust what he's seeing. He's, sometimes escaping the pocket where he's got time and he doesn't need to be doing that. And, I think for Bo Nix to really unlock his full potential, he's got to start using his legs a little bit more as far as running the football. And I think there were some opportunities for him to do that last night, and he didn't do that. And, if you're Sean Payton, you got to be a little bit concerned because he's clearly not improving. He's going in the wrong direction here at this point. And if you're a Denver Bronco fan, you certainly are a little bit concerned about that. All right, time to welcome in our guest. Asked him to come on the show a little bit earlier this week, was really excited. Richard Skinner of Local 12 is now joining us here live on the show. Skinny, can you hear me? How you doing? So happy you're hopping on here. Appreciate you. How's it going?
It's going great. By the way, watching that game last night, I've never seen a quarterback throw more jump passes in my life than Bo Nix.
Seriously, unbelievable. I mean, he's just he's not trusting what he's seeing. He's not staying calm in the pocket, and I think you got an issue right now if you're the Denver Broncos, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a good team. Otherwise, it really. I mean, I got a chance to see him firsthand when the Bengals played out there. That defense is absolutely for real.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. All right, let's talk Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, it is a bye week for Cincinnati. No game here this week. The trade deadline has came and went, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on how the deadline exactly went down for Cincinnati. In a lot of ways, kind of the inverse of what we saw last year at the trade deadline for Cincinnati, right? They made a move early in the day last year. They gave up a seventh-round pick in order to get a player. Now they get a player, or give away a player and get a seventh-round pick in the process. It was early in the morning. We all were kind of sitting there like, okay, kind of saw this move coming. Is another move going to follow? Ultimately, it did not. I know most of us were not shocked by that whatsoever. Typical Cincinnati decision. You wrote about this for local12.com, but do you think it was a mistake for Cincinnati that they didn't move off of other players on their roster, and specifically Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, and here's why. And listen, I get that they're trying to tell the fan base and probably their own players, we're not waving the white flag on this season. We're still playing to get to the playoffs. And that's fine. If that was your belief on why you didn't move on from other players like Trey Hendrickson, maybe B.J. Hill, although his contract was going to be probably pretty hard to move, Cam Taylor-Britt, name whoever else you want to name. That's fine. If you want to say we're not waving the white flag on this season, then go do to your point, the inverse. Go add to the safety room. Go add to the cornerback room. Go add to the defensive line room. And I realize it's not completely black and white easy. You have to find a trade partner. There has to be, commensurate value going back and all those things. But to just stand pat makes no sense. Trey Hendrickson had some value, probably no higher than a third round. And I do understand that, listen, if he walks as a free agent, he could probably command a third-round comp pick, maybe a fourth-round comp pick. But you have some money to spend in free agency next year yourselves, and you have to do that to rebuild this defense. So whatever you think you're getting back in a comp pick for Trey Hendrickson, you're probably losing in the free agents you sign. So, and that comp pick doesn't even come till 2027. You need help in 2026. So, yeah, I didn't understand it whatsoever. I'm not sure we'll ever get an explanation. We asked those of us on the beat this week, put a formal request in to talk to Duke Tobin. He did not make himself available because he likes to hide and he doesn't like to talk. So I wish I could give you an answer to a question I would like to ask him of, what are you trying to do? What were you trying to do? And maybe they tried, and that goes back to this, Stone. Maybe they tried and there just were no trading partners or the value coming back. You thought, I'm not giving Trey Hendrickson up for a fifth-round pick, but nobody knows. We don't know what the value was.
On April 26, 2023, Paul Dehner Jr., who obviously we love, wrote a piece for The Athletic, and it was titled, "Duke Tobin is the best NFL exec you don't know, and he's fine with that." When he wrote that piece, I don't think it was a crazy thing to write it, but you look down, it's like that was only a couple years ago, right, in 2023. My question to you is simple. What the heck happened?
It's a great question. I mean, bad drafts are what happened. And I think when Paul wrote that piece, that was prior to the 2023 draft, I believe, by a couple of days. So the 2023 draft hadn't occurred. The 2024 draft hadn't occurred. The 2025 draft hadn't occurred. The 2021, prior to the 2021 offseason, he hit some home runs, right? Chidobe Awuzie, Trey Hendrickson. And listen, it's easy to look back in retrospect and go, God, Trey Hendrickson was an easy signing. It really wasn't. Remember, should they re-sign Carl Lawson? And why are they signing this guy on 1 year of productivity? Well, it was a great move. And so he deserves the credit for those things because he was able to throw some money at Chidobe Awuzie. I mentioned Von Bell. So, he was able to address a chunk of that with money. And you had the Jamar Chase draft looked pretty good on paper at the time. It turned out not to be because Jackson Carman was a second-round bust. And then came all these other drafts since then. Just look at the. I wouldn't even go past day two. I mean, it's unfair in my opinion to grade guys on day three selections negatively. You can grade them positively if they hit on fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh rounders. But day one and day two guys need to be on your roster producing. Not all. There's going to be a bust or an injury in there somewhere, but most have to be. Um, let's use this draft, and it's way too early. I fully understand that, but to this point, Shamar Stewart's been exactly what we thought he was going to be, a guy who's not very productive. The two rookie linebackers are struggling immensely. Dylan Fairchild has struggled at times, although it looks like he's improving a little bit. Go back to last year's draft class. Chris Jenkins has regressed. Had a good training camp, but has regressed as the season's gone on. He was your second round pick. Your third round picks were McKinley Jackson and Jermaine Burton. Burton hasn't been active for a single game. McKinley's gotten a handful of snaps in the two games he's been active. Go back to the prior year. Miles Murphy, a first round pick, has been a bust. So all of a sudden, after Paul pins that piece, it's been the exact opposite. It's been a guy that I'm not sure I trust to give another draft to in 2026 or another offseason to in 2026 to rebuild this roster.
Coming into the season, there were two massive decisions that the Bengals had to execute at a high level. One, who Zach Taylor was going to hire as the defensive coordinator, and two, who they were going to pick at that number 17 overall spot. Let's start with the first part here. Al Golden, what's kind of your take on him? Because usually, if you're in the NFL and your unit is playing as bad as Al Golden is playing, you're going to be in the crosshairs, right? People are going to be coming at you, and rightfully so. But I watch this defense, and I go, he just doesn't have any guys out there, right? They don't get any pass rush. They're weak along the defensive line. The linebackers obviously are too young and inexperienced and immature here at this point. And the secondary obviously isn't any good either. What's your kind of take on Al Golden here to this point? Does he deserve a ton of blame, or is he just in a spot where he doesn't have much to work with?
He doesn't have much to work with, and I think after last year they thought the problem was Lou Anarumo. I didn't think it was, but if they thought it was, and you thought you needed a new voice, that's fine. You were probably at that point in the program to say, hey, somebody different needs to come in with some fresh ideas, different voice. That's fine. I'll give you that part. But obviously, it's proven out to be wasn't Lou Anarumo's fault at all, and this is not Al Golden's fault. I mean. Trey Hendrickson's played the last 4 games. He's played 2 halves and missed 2 other games. And when you're playing Shamar Stewart, Miles Murphy, Joseph Osai, and Joseph Osai is probably the best of the bunch, and he doesn't even start. Miles and Shamar start. Those guys get no pass rush, get no pressure, set no edge against the run, get pushed around. TJ Slayton, the free agent signing, was supposed to be the kind of the DJ Reader light, if you will, and he's been a disaster. I mean, I've never seen a guy that size get pushed out of the hole more often than he does. BJ Hill's contract signing still puzzles me. I think BJ has some value, but not value through the 2027 season at $6 million and $8 million respectively in the next 2 years. He's a rotational guy at best. You moved on from Logan Wilson, and probably rightfully so. But I say that with the full knowledge, if you're a big Pro Football Focus guy, I'm wishy-washy on it, but it's a metric. At the moment, Demetrius Knight's the 80th graded linebacker out of 82 in the NFL, and Barrett Carter's number 82 of 82 in the NFL. And then you go to your 2 safeties, neither of whom can tackle. So, and they couldn't tackle last year, so it's not like Al Golden came in and they stopped tackling. They never did tackle, for goodness sake. So I do think it's personnel related. That's why I go back to Duke Tobin's the one who has to go first and foremost.
I totally agree. And the second part of that is Shamar Stewart. I understand it's early. I understand it's year one. I understand he's missed several games with an injury. And I might be being a little bit brash here, but I'm out. I think he's a bust, and I really don't see it. And I know we all were questioning the pick when they took him, right? It was a guy that, maybe his ceiling was really high, but his floor was really, really low. And we're seeing him out there on the football field, and it is not good. And the reason that's kind of the nail in the coffin for me is from a maturity standpoint. I mean, what we went through this offseason, he hadn't played a single down with this Bengals defense, and I understand he's a young guy, 21 years old, whatever it may be, but I would like to see a little bit more maturity. And then he wasn't talking to you guys after the game last week. Don't love to see that either. Are you out on Shamar Stewart yet, or am I being a little ridiculous writing him off at this point?
I'm not out, but I don't think you're being ridiculous either, because this was a total traits over production guy, and we've seen some of the traits at time. I mean, in training camp, he flashed the traits every single day.
Right.
But now you're seeing a lot of what happened in college. He gets around the quarterback. That's all cute and nice and fun, but he doesn't finish the quarterback. he gets taken out of the hole a lot of times. And I did this last week, I think. I did a kind of a redraft of the first 3 rounds. And I know hindsight's 20/20. I fully will tell you that. But The guys I'm about to tell you were all talked about for the Bengals in the spots that they took other players. So, Stone, they obviously needed a linebacker, right? Because they took two of them, one in the second round, one in the fourth round. Jihad Campbell was sitting there on the board. He's had a great rookie season for the Philadelphia Eagles, who apparently know how to draft very, very well. And you chose to take Shamar Stewart instead of Jihad Campbell. But let's just say you took Jihad Campbell in round one. There's one of your linebackers. In round two, then, you didn't need to take Demetrius Knight. Tate Ratledge was sitting right there. Everybody screamed, take Tate Ratledge in the second round. Even when they took Demetrius Knight, there was a lot of screaming to take Tate Ratledge. I think he's ranked 20th of 80 some odd guards in the NFL by PFF. He's having a really good rookie year. You obviously needed a guard because what did you do in round three? You took a guard. Well, I've already taken a guard. In round three, you desperately needed safety help. You needed depth. I will tell you this. I know this for a fact. They do not trust Tyson Anderson or P.J. Jules. It's why neither one of those guys have been given a chance over the two guys who started who were terrible. That tells me you knew you needed safety help coming into the year. Who was sitting there in round three? A guy that Al Golden coached at Notre Dame, Xavier Watts. I mean, it's not even hard. It's not like I'm looking and going, who's the best guy they missed on? No, I'm looking at logical guys they missed on. It's just not that hard, and it feels like they try to be the smartest guy in the room. Like, we see something in Myles Murphy you don't see. Okay, well, I don't see it right now. We see something in Shamar Stewart that you guys don't see. Well, I saw a guy that had 4.5 sacks in college. I believe 3 of those were against either a MAC school or a Division I AA, whatever it's called, these FCS school. That's pretty unproductive in my opinion. I don't care how athletically freaky he is. He doesn't do anything, and it's proving out to a point. I do think it's too early. I don't think you're being unreasonable, but I do think it's too early. I'll give a rookie at least a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I've given Myles Murphy that. I thought I saw flashes in Myles as a rookie that it was gonna eventually come to fruition when he got regular snaps, because that was when Sam Hubbard was still healthy and playing, and obviously Trey was the other end. So he didn't get a lot of opportunity. He got some, and I thought he did some good things. Then totally regressed last year and has done nothing this year.
Let's have the Zach Taylor conversation. I've defended him probably more than anybody, to be completely honest with you. And my rationale here is, I think there's an angle of this people are forgetting, is that Mike Brown is 90 years old. He doesn't want to blow this thing up. If they're going to win a world championship, they need to do it here pretty soon. And it's my way of thinking that you know what you have in T, Jamar, and obviously when Joe Burrow is healthy. And they've had a lot of success with Zach Taylor, specifically on the offensive side. So I lean to, look, he's got to find a way to win some games through the rest of the way. He can't go winless the rest of the way, but right. I think that, Duke Tobin probably deserves a little bit more blame than Zach Taylor. Where are you with him at this point? His job security, what does he need to do to keep it? And is he the right guy, in your opinion, to lead this team with a healthy Joe Burrow?
I think he is. I do, and I know that's not going to be a popular
I'm with
opinion.
I'm with you.
I'm leaning more towards the last few drafts have just put this team in a bad hole. And when you're paying your stars, and you knew you were going to have to pay your stars eventually, right? You knew you were going to have to pay Burrow. You knew you were going to have to pay Chase. I don't know if they were all in on needing to pay T, but when your quarterback vouches for him, it was probably the right thing to do. I was more last offseason in the camp of let him walk. I could probably still be convinced to say that would have been the right decision. But okay, your quarterback lobbied for him, so you paid T. And listen, they're looking smarter and smarter for not giving a bunch of guaranteed money to Trey Hendrickson, but you also paid him $30 million. And by the way, you're paying your left tackle $18 million. When you're paying your stars, and it's the right thing to do to pay your stars because they've earned that, guys have to perform on rookie contracts. I mean, when this team was really good, as I mentioned, they were able to throw a bunch of money in free agency at defensive players because they had Joe Burrow on a rookie deal, Tee Higgins on a rookie deal, Jamar Chase on a rookie deal, and instead they drafted so poorly that they can't overcome it at the moment. I know people get frustrated with Zach's play calling, but all I know is this. They were, what 1-4 last year when they scored 30-plus points? The last 2 weeks, they've scored 38 and 42 and lost. I don't think that's bad play calling. I think there's a lot of offenses in the NFL that would sign me up for 80 points in 2 weeks and go, yeah, not only are we going 2-0, we're going 2-0 and crushing it, instead of going, wait a minute, we lost both those games? Holy cow. So I think he's a great – I think he really – from a head coach perspective, I think he has the respect of the players, Logan Wilson aside, from the letter he penned in which he left Zach out. I think there was obviously a rift at the end because that was Zach's decision to put Barrett Carter in the starting lineup. That was not an Al Golden decision. That was a Zach decision, and he fessed up to it and said, no, that was my decision to make. It was time to see what the rookies had. But I was telling, to the earlier points, the defense is so lacking personnel that I don't know what coach could come in and win a lot of games with this group. And I do think there's a symmetry with Zach and Joe Burrow. I don't know if Joe Burrow wants to have another voice at this point of his career other than Zach Taylor in his headset.
Great stuff here. Richard Skinner joining us live here on the show. Got a couple more minutes here from Local 12. I was thinking about this the other day. What Joe Flacco is doing, this Bengals defense is robbing him of literally being the story of the sports world. Forget the NFL, forget the city of Cincinnati. What he has been able to do, 40 years of age, comes in a trade, short week, plays the Green Bay game. Incredible. Just kind of contextualize what he's been able to do as the Bengals quarterback here over the last few weeks.
So, we saw him in the opener, right? And he wasn't awful. I mean, he did throw 2 interceptions, but both of those were deflections off receivers' hands. But that's kind of what I thought Joe Flacco was at this point of his career, as a meh quarterback. Like, right. You're a bridge guy. You're okay. Desperate times called for desperate measures when they made the trade, because Jake Browning, to my surprise, I thought Jake was going to be fine, and he obviously wasn't. They were trying to salvage their season at that point, and Joe was the best guy on the street. And even at that point, I'm like, okay, it's going to be better, but is it going to be enough to win games? And then that first half of the Green Bay game, it's like, yep, this is the Joe Flacco I remember, and this is where he is at this point of his career. And then all of a sudden, the second half of that game, it just was bang, 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 snap, snap, snap. They scored 18 points. He's averaging, with him under center since that second half of the Green Bay game, they're averaging 10 points a quarter. I mean, that's 40 points in a game. It's been phenomenal to watch. I don't think anybody really can appreciate what he did with that shoulder. I mean, he probably shouldn't have come back in the game before the Jets game. He went back to the locker room, and I can only imagine what shot they gave him to numb whatever pain he was feeling. Because I remember in the post-game press conference, he's like, "Yeah, I feel pretty good. Okay, yeah, I'm sure you do at the moment. Tomorrow ain't gonna be so good," and it wasn't. And then he did go throw Thursday. He showed them enough to be able to play, but still, they were going to have to shoot that thing up. He knew it. He did it. And he went out and threw for 470 yards, and they lost. And to your point, it stinks, because I think all of us that wrote a piece after the game was about the defense and kind of the rift in the locker room that felt like it was growing a little bit. And I think I bet you I was probably 3/4 of the way through the column where I went, it wiped out a heroic performance from Joe Flacco. I gave his stats, gave a quote that Zach had about him. I think I gave a Flacco quote and then moved on to end the piece about how bad things were. It shouldn't have been that. It should have been, what a heroic performance of epic proportions he just gave this franchise to keep them afloat in the playoff race. Instead, it's, to your point, Joe Flacco threw 470 yards and they lost.
The other Joe Burrow, the team obviously 3-6 here at this point. You hear rumblings, reports behind the scenes. Oh, he's doing good. He's ahead of schedule. He's in a good spot. He's progressing well here. Where do you stand here on Joe Burrow? I go back and forth on this, right? It's like, well, if they're not mathematically eliminated, do you give him a chance if he has an opportunity to potentially go out there? Do you want to see Joe Burrow back? Do you think he will be back? What are some of the pros and cons, especially with where they're at right now at 3-6?
Yeah, I think if they're teetering on mathematical elimination, I think he better be 150,000% healthy, right? I mean, not like, hey, I'm good, I just got to deal with a little bit of pain, I'll play through the pain, because he is a tough guy. I mean, the one thing I know about Joe Burrow is this: he has come back from 2 major surgeries, one on his knee and one on his wrist. And that sounds, and I'm not pointing the finger at you. I think we all do this. Like, we hear about these guys' surgeries and we just shrug our shoulders. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, man. I've never had a major surgery in my life. I don't know what that would feel like to recover from that. I've broken a bone here and a bone there, whatever. We all have. But I've never had to somebody put a knife and tear apart my body. So I don't know what that's like. And he's come back and played at a high level as a professional athlete. So if anybody can do this on a quicker timeline, on a timeline where he is 100%, it is Joe Burrow. But I got to be honest, if you're mathematically eliminated and he wants to play a game, and let's just say he's back for the Miami game, which is the third to last game in Miami. He said, I'm good to go. And you're eliminated. What is the upside to playing him? Is there any upside at all? I don't think there is. I guess, if I'm in Zach Taylor's shoes and the kid convinces me that I'm great to go, I want to play, I need to get some snaps now to head into next year, maybe I can be talked into it. But I think at that point, you save the kid from himself and say, let's keep resting this, getting this thing better, and we'll see you in 2026.
Finally, Skinny, the offensive line. Obviously, lots of dialogue around that unit in the offseason, then the beginning of the year, and then it feels like they've kind of hidden in the shadows a little bit here as all the blame has gone on the defense. I think it feels like since Flacco's taken over, it has gotten better. You look at the PFF grades of some of the individual guys. Obviously, it is not great, but you got two rooks there on the offensive line, Fairchild and Rivers. Shoot, I didn't expect Rivers to be thrown into the mix here. Remember, at the beginning of the year, he's playing tackle. Now they're asking him to go inside. He's playing guard, and it's like, yeah, he's not great now, but eye test tells you it's not that bad. He's kind of hanging in there. What's your take on specifically those two rookies? Can they be foundational pieces for you going forward? And I guess just the general overall state here of the offensive line, because in recent weeks, the dialogue around them has certainly quieted down a little bit.
Yeah, Dan Pitcher, the offensive coordinator, we talked to him once a week and talked to him on Tuesday, I believe, Monday or Tuesday, I guess it was, the last day before they kind of took the break. And he was talking about the ascension of both those rookie guards, that they do feel like they're foundational pieces. And I think that's where they're kind of letting them play through some stuff. Amarius Mims, you haven't talked about him much of late, right? Like, I think he's been pretty solid. I think Ted Karras, who I didn't think played well at all last year. I just didn't. I think he's played really well. Orlando Brown had a really shaky stretch this year where, honestly, I harkened back to his injury last year and thought to myself, man, these guys suffer an injury at that point of their career. There's a chance for real regression. And it looked like that for chunks of this year, and he's played better of late. So I think some of it is – and listen, I know this is going to sound awful. Nobody wants to blame Joe Burrow for anything in life. I get it. But Joe's even talked about he takes sacks at times on 3rd and 8s where he's like, I'll extend the play because I want to try to get a first down. And if I get sacked, so be it. Well, that sack gets credited to the offensive line, or debited, if you will, the offensive line. And it looks like at the end of the game, well, they gave up 4 sacks. Well, 2 of them might have been Joe Burrow's sacks. Maybe even a third might have been a Joe Burrow sack. And he'd be the first to tell you that sack was on me. Not all of them are on him, right? I mean, but he does extend plays. Flacco's totally different, right? He's not mobile. He's not going to extend a play. Other than a crazy scramble or two that comes out of nowhere. He's going to get out of his hands quick, and they're getting under center a little bit more, and that's, I think, helped the running game quite a bit. It's helped the offensive line quite a bit. And maybe when Joe Burrow comes back, it's, you can be in shotgun a chunk, man. It's what you do. It's your strength, your superpowers, your processing. But our under center stuff worked pretty good with Joe Flacco. You're fully capable of going under center, and yeah, you may have to turn your back to the defense every once in a while. We're not going to ask you to do a ton, but it's going to save you from yourself too. Where you're not trying to extend plays. You're not trying to do anything Superman-like. Just get it out of your hands fast. And I think maybe there's a learning lesson for everybody in what Joe Flacco's done.
Great stuff. Richard Skinner, Local 12. You've got your column. You've got your podcast there as well. Let us all know all the stuff you got going on and where we can find you.
Yep, at local12.com/sports, on Twitter at local12skinny. I've got the podcast with my friend Rick Brorig each and every week. We usually drop it on Thursdays, sometimes on Wednesdays, and then a post-game podcast I do with Mike Petralia from CLNS Media. We do the Jungle Roar podcast after every Bengals game.
Awesome stuff. Great to see you, Skinny. Let's do it again sometime.
You too, Stone. Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yes, sir. Take care. Richard Skinner, Local 12. We appreciate him stopping by. Awesome stuff there from Skinny. Really appreciate him hopping on. That was tremendous, talking Cincinnati Bengals here on the show. So my first job out of college was over at iHeartMedia as a producer there, working on 700 WLW, ESPN 1530. I was Lance McAllister's producer, and one night Lance, he was off that night, and Skinny filled in for him, so it was great to meet Skinny there, and ran into him at the NFL Combine actually this past year as well. So Skinny, tremendous guy, great job covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Check out his column, check out his podcast, and yeah, certainly hope we can do that going forward in the future here as we try to establish some guests that try to frequently come on our show. We certainly would love to see more of Richard Skinner here in the future. Big shout out to him. Appreciate Richard Skinner, Local 12. All right, let's talk college football. We do it every week. It's our college football weekend preview here on a Friday. Good games, as always, this week. We'll talk about 5 of them here on the show. And let's start with the big noon game, Indiana at Penn State. Look, Indiana, 14.5-point favorite. They're clearly better than they were last year, right? Last year it was kind of some cute story. And, people were kind of talking about, oh, here's Curt Cignetti, and he talks this big game, and he tells people to Google him and all this stuff. But then, they faced Ohio State. They were outmatched. They faced Notre Dame in the playoff. They were outmatched. Not the case here this year. They're ranked number 2, and rightfully so. They do everything right. They got a really good quarterback in Mendoza. They got skill guys on the outside. They can run the football. They defend. It's a top 5 defense. They're big in the trenches. They're tough. They're physical, and they don't make mistakes. And they're a really buttoned up football team. Now, there's some people out there on ESPN. I saw this when the rankings came out, kind of suggesting that Indiana or Texas A&M should be ranked 1 over Ohio State. I understand they've played tougher games, right? They've had a tougher schedule maybe, but let's not kid ourselves here, right? Ohio State, not going to be talking about them this week. They play Purdue. Yeah, really good game there. But Ohio State clearly head and shoulders above everybody else here at this point. But Indiana, number 2. Better than last year. Some injuries might be a bit of a concern for them here at this point. They've got 2 players, 2 of their best players. Surratt, we've been talking about him all year. Their wide receiver, one of the best in the country. He left the Maryland game last week, hamstring injury. He's a little banged up. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on his potential availability for this game. And then Aiden Fisher, saw him get hurt in the UCLA game. He's a real stabilizer on their defense, a leader on their defense, and they're not the same without him. So Indiana has a few injuries here. That's another thing about Ohio State. They're all healthy here at this point. So those are 2 key injuries to keep your eye on here. But the thing about Indiana, man, is they don't just beat teams. They beat the tar out of teams, and they do it on a weekly basis, week in and week out. They go in there, whether they're home or on the road, and they beat the crap out of their opponent. And, in a lot of ways, they beat the crud out of Maryland last week, right? And Maryland's kind of funny. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Miami Dolphins over the past few years, where Maryland starts out so good in September, and you're like, oh, they might be all right. And then the season goes on, and you're like, oh, no, same old team. They're not very good, but no issues for Indiana against them at all in this game. But it is on the road, right? Penn State, Happy Valley, notoriously, a difficult place to play, no doubt about that. But Penn State obviously is not the Penn State that they expected to be, and certainly not the Penn State that we saw a month or so ago, right? They've had a lot of changes. No James Franklin, their quarterback, Drew Aller, he goes down, and they tried to do the whole, Ohio State and Michigan blueprint, right? We've seen it the past 2 national champions, where you get this old veteran team that's been around each other for a while, that can play offense, that can play defense, that can run the ball, that has a competent quarterback, that doesn't turn the ball over, and they all come back and try to go all in here on their final year. Michigan executed it great, national title. Ohio State executed it great, national title. Penn State tried to do it, and it was a complete disaster. Now, their quarterback, Grunkemeyer, just a kind of a nightmare situation that he finds himself in. A great opportunity. He's handled it okay for the most part. I want to bang on the kid here, but he went at Iowa, Kinnick Stadium, tough place to play. We'll talk about that in a second. At the Shoe against the best team in the country, and then at home against Indiana, the second best team in the country. So he hasn't really had many opportunities here, to be honest with you. Just a gauntlet for him. But if Penn State wants to be competitive in this game, they got to get back to running the football, right? Take it a lot off the shoulders of Grunkemeyer. They had success on the ground in the first half. Mind you, it was, a 3-point game going into halftime last week. In the Shoe, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, that tandem there at that running back spot, they're really, really good. So if they can find a way to run the ball against Indiana, keep the ball out of Mendoza's hands a little bit, maybe they'll have a chance, but there's a reason it's a 14.5-point spread. Indiana, they don't play with their food. They go in there and they beat the crap out of people, and we'll revisit this game in a second for our best bets of the weekend. Also at noon, a big one in the Big 12. Lots of UC fans are going to have a close eye on that game. 7 BYU at 8 Texas Tech. We have them flipped in our power rankings, or our top 10 for college football here at this point, but I get it. BYU, undefeated team, got to show them some love here at this point. It is in Lubbock. Great environment there at Texas Tech. Joey McGuire, hats off to him. He's done a tremendous job. Head coach at Texas Tech. We talk about all the time these teams in the transfer portal NIL era where they go all in on a roster, spend a ton of money, and it's like, well, you can't just buy your guys and be really, really good. Well, Texas Tech is kind of defeating that narrative a little bit here because they're a really good football team. They have the one loss on the road against Arizona State. Didn't have Baron Morton playing. That was a Will Hammond game, who, by the way, now is out for the year. I believe Baron Morton is back, and that is critical for Texas Tech. A lot of good players in this game. Obviously, the story for BYU is their true freshman quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, and it's kind of interesting. Kind of reminds you of the Broncos in a little bit as far as how they rely on coming back in the fourth quarter to win. I'm not saying their defense is that good, but Bachmeier and the BYU offense oftentimes find themselves behind early on first half, and they come roaring back and win the game at the end. It's not a formula that you can rely on to be consistent, right? But Bear Bachmeier, he deserves a ton of credit, and he's putting in kind of a historical season. Really, as far as true freshman quarterbacks go, he hasn't lost a game, right? He's 8-0 as a true freshman. Last time we seen that was Trevor Lawrence, right? Now, obviously, he's not a Trevor Lawrence-type talent, but Trevor Lawrence, the year he had at Clemson, he comes in, replaces Kelly Bryant at the time. They go on and win the national title and really dominate Alabama there in that game. So pretty historic stuff what Barry Bachmeier's been able to do. And I was thinking of this. I've always been like, who is he? Reminds me of somebody out there. And Joel Klatt, so shout out Joel Klatt, Fox Sports said it on his podcast, Max Duggan. He's Max Duggan at TCU, what Bear Bachmeier does here at this point. Tough, physical, gritty. It's not always going to look pretty, right? But he has the confidence of his teammates. They rally around him. And, I think that's a perfect comp there from Joel Klatt. Max Duggan, in a lot of ways, Bear Bachmeier reminds you of him. David Bailey is going to play a huge role in this game for Texas Tech. He leads the country in sacks. If you haven't heard of him, you watch the game, you will hear of him at noon on Saturday. And Jacob Rodriguez there at that linebacker spot. There's a lot of people out there that view he could be a potential guy that wins the Buckus Award. Unfortunately for him, Arvell Reese also plays linebacker for Ohio State, so probably unlikely he gets that award. But Jacob Rodriguez, really good player there at that linebacker spot. Joey McGuire, man, his defense, they got some dudes. They can run the football as well, take the load off the shoulders of Baron Morton, their quarterback. They got 2 sophomores there in the backfield, Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams. They do a great job of running the football. And an injury note here for the Cougars, Jack Kelly, who is their sack leader and one of their leaders of their defense. He's banged up, and his status for this game is up in the air. Texas Tech, 10-point favorites at home in Lubbock against BYU. UC, obviously, it's a bye week for the Cats. They're going to have a close eye on that football game, and we will revisit this a little bit as well in a matter of moments for our best bets of the weekend. Oregon and Iowa. This is my favorite game of the weekend. I think it's going to be tremendous. We said this early in the week, keep an eye on Iowa in this spot, potentially pulling an upset. Now, as the week goes on, you see some more people nationally that are kind of saying the same thing. Kirk Herbstreit went on the McAfee show, I believe, yesterday, and he was like, I was going to win this game. I was going to win this game. And I think it's going to be close. I don't know if necessarily they're going to win, but this is going to be a great college football game. And, some people, the AP poll is kind of disrespecting Iowa a little bit. Kirk Ferentz, he's been there since 99 as their head coach, and he's 70 years of age right now. And look, they don't play the most exciting brand of football. They don't throw it around the field. It's kind of very much defense, special teams, run the football, hard-nosed, tough, physical, right? And it obviously hasn't led to them winning Big Ten championships or winning at a super high level, but they win games. There's a reason Kirk Ferentz has been in place as the head man at Iowa for so long. And look, it's a dangerous spot for Oregon. Kinnick Stadium, I'm telling you, Iowa, 3:30. The weather is something to keep an eye on in this game. Rain, it's cold rain as well. They're saying maybe even a little bit sleet second half. This is an Iowa team that they're going to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball throughout the entirety of the football game. Gronowski, their quarterback, he's really good. He didn't throw the ball much, but he's really good running the football, and that's going to be the key for Oregon. If they can stop the run, they'll win. But I don't know if necessarily that's going to happen. Also, if they win the turnover battle, they're going to win. But Iowa is a team that forces a lot of turnovers. They fly around. They make plays. I bet they're going to – if Oregon wins the turnover battle, they win, as I said. But if Iowa can create some turnovers, flip the field a little bit, right? Make a special teams play or two. They do that a lot as well, do the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I'm really interested to see how this game goes. Iowa feasts on turnovers. They absolutely do. Weather factor. Both good defenses, right? I was kind of surprised that Oregon was at 9. They put the 2 Big 12 teams above Oregon. If Oregon was playing Texas Tech, who would be favored? I mean, come on, let's not kid ourselves here. So we were a little bit higher on Oregon in our rankings. But certainly a game to keep an eye on. 3:30 should be really good here. And Oregon can run the football there as well. They got Jordan Davison and Noah Whittingham. So it feels like, not very many possessions here in this game. Feels like it'll be kind of a relatively quick game, clock running oftentimes. And, good zone defense there for Ferentz, and we'll see how Dante Moore can navigate that, right? People view Dante Moore as a first-round type of quarterback. I think there's some people that say he'll definitely come back to school. That'll be something that's certainly interesting to monitor. But it's a good Iowa defense. They play a lot of zone coverage. The weather's going to be crappy. You want to be an NFL first-round pick, you got to be able to throw the ball in crappy weather, and we'll see if Dante Moore can do that. But, he was kind of a Heisman guy for a while, and it's kind of fallen off that after the loss to Indiana. Didn't play great in that game, and then he kind of messed around with Wisconsin also in bad weather in that game there as well. But, I think Dante Moore, if he goes off in this game, he kind of reinserts himself back into the Heisman conversation. It's my favorite game of the weekend. I absolutely love it. 6.5 points in favor of the Oregon Ducks. We'll revisit this game as well for our best bets of the weekend. 2 more here. to conclude our college football weekend preview, A&M and Missouri. A&M's unbeaten. They're coming off a bye. Again, the people at ESPN are like, oh, they might be the best team. They're good. They're really good. They play offense. They play defense. Unfortunately, not better than Ohio State's. But Missouri, you talk about on the road in the SEC, and it can be very daunting. I don't know if Missouri really classifies like that. Certainly more daunting than going to Kroger Field in Kentucky, right? But it's not some crazy environment there. They got a lot of construction going on in one of the end zones, which is kind of the optics of that obviously aren't great. But A&M coming off a bye, they're a complete team, right? They can run it. They can throw it. They can defend. Elko, coach him with a lot of confidence. His players are playing free with a lot of confidence there as well. They got in that shootout against Arkansas, which was kind of weird. But Bobby Petrino, say what you want about him, but he knows offensive football. And he had the Arkansas offense humming in that game. So I have some questions a little bit there with the A&M defense. But the key here is Bo Perbula is out. Right, he got hurt in the Vandy game for Missouri, so they got a true freshman quarterback in the game. Matt Zollers will be under center, and we'll see. Welcome to college football. Here's Texas A&M. Best of luck to you, essentially. But the key for Missouri, if they want to hang in there in this game, they got to get back to run the football, right? Early in the year, we were sitting here saying Ahmad Hardy, best back in the country, going to be an NFL guy. He's kind of fallen off a little bit. He's got to get back to that early season form. If Missouri is going to have a chance in this game, they got to run it early. They got to run it often. I'm a big believer in Ahmad Hardy, but they got to give him the rock, and he's got to tote that thing in order for Missouri to hang in there, stay in this game. Cassius Howe is a guy to keep your eye on always when A&M's playing. Rushing the passer, he's an NFL guy. Keep your eye on him. But kind of to go with that Ahmad Hardy point, the Aggies, believe it or not, are a bottom 10 team in the country when it comes to yards per carry allowed. So this is a team you can run on a little bit. Notre Dame had some success running the football on them earlier in the year. Ahmad Hardy, you would think that's a good matchup for Missouri, and we'll see how that goes. But if I'm Mike Elko here, I'm loading the box, right? True freshman quarterback, Zollers, and you've got some guys that can defend on the outside. If you're Texas A&M, I'm loading the box and saying, throw the football, beat us with your freshman quarterback and see what he has. And that will be an interesting matchup to watch in this game. And the Aggies have been the best road team in the country. And there are 3 road games. They've scored more than 40 or more points in all those games. We'll see if that continues against Missouri. Definitely upset alert, right? I think I'm not going to say there's fraudulent tendencies to, Texas A&M, but I don't view them on the same level as Ohio State and Indiana and even Alabama, to be completely honest with you. I don't think they're quite there yet. If they go to Missouri, Columbia, handle business on the road, maybe I'll change on that, but I still need see a little bit more from them from a run defense perspective. And, Marcel Reed throwing the football. He's got 2 really good receivers in Craver and Concepcion. Obviously, we know what he can do with his own read stuff, using his legs, run the football. He's throwing the ball well from within the pocket, but I need to see more of it, and ultimately I need to see their defense step up a little bit and stop the run here. Finally, LSU and Alabama. Usually this is a banger each and every year going into the year. You certainly thought it was going to be a banger, but LSU is unranked, and they fired their head coach in Brian Kelly. So both these teams coming off a bye. Alabama always bye week before LSU, and it was very interesting watching this Tiger team early, because you kind of thought that, Nussmeier was supposed to be some top guy, Heisman candidate coming in the year. I was drinking the Garrett Nussmeier Kool-Aid, hand up accountability there. He's been banged up throughout much of the year, playing through a lot of injuries, so, I think that should be taken into account, certainly. But Whit Weeks, one of the best linebackers in the country, he went out a couple of weeks ago, and that defense doesn't even resemble how they looked early in the year. Whit Weeks is a tremendous player. His status, by the way, for this game against Alabama is questionable. I'm sure he's doing everything in his power to try to be available for this game. But from a defensive perspective, the LSU Tigers have really stunk over the past few weeks, and their offense isn't clicking. Their coach is fired. So it's a complete mess. It's hard for me to sit here and believe that they're going to get this thing turned around. Again, it's not even in Death Valley. They got to go to Titletown, play in Tuscaloosa. But this game, man, everything goes out the window. LSU, Alabama, it's not the same as, Ohio State, Michigan, or Alabama, Auburn even. But LSU, Alabama, a lot goes out the window. This is their natty, right? LSU thought they were going to be competing for an actual national championship this year, but this is their national title here on the road against Alabama. And, the Tide better be ready for this game. They better show up, be ready for the game. And, Ty Simpson, I've said this point several times on the show. Alabama, it is an elite team when Ty Simpson is playing elite football. When Ty Simpson is not playing elite football, even if he's just playing good football, Alabama is very, very vulnerable because they have a lot of holes. Credit to Kalen DeBoer and their staff, even Kane Walmack, there defensively. They've cleaned up some of their issues, but they are very much reliant on 15 being very, very special. And if he's not in this game against LSU, that can open up some potential opportunities for the Tigers to possibly hang around late in this ball game. LSU has to blitz them, right? And when you sit there and you have an elite quarterback, which I believe Ty Simpson is, and you sit there and say you got to blitz him, usually that's a recipe for disaster if you're the defense, right? I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but you think about these elite quarterbacks. You blitz Tom Brady, that's a death sentence. You blitz Joe Burrow, that's a death sentence. So I think they have to do that, but if they don't get home, look out, because Ty Simpson's going to continue to rack up points as he's the trigger man on the best passing offense, passing attack in college football. Finally, best bets of the weekend here on today's show. We got 5 plays here this week. Look, we went 0-5 last week. That's not good. That's not good at all. And we were just at the point where we were just about at 500, ready to go on this run. What's crazy about sports gambling, that was probably the best I had felt about a slate of picks going into a weekend. Went 0-5. So I had to call in some help here for this week. Shout out to Will Johnson, one of my best friends in the world. He helped me put together this week's slate, and we feel good about it going into this week here. Look, Indiana, Penn State, first game. We got 3 college plays, by the way, and 2 NFL plays on this slate. Indiana, they're going to Penn State. They're going to Happy Valley. What did I just say when we previewed the Indiana Hoosiers and the Penn State and Indy Lions? Indiana doesn't just beat teams. They beat the crap out of teams. And Cignetti, man, he's on a mission. He's looking to get to Indianapolis because he wants Ohio State. That's what he wants. And he wants an undefeated Ohio State, and he wants to be undefeated when he plays Ohio State there as well. And they're going to come in. They're locked. They're laser focused. Sometimes with these teams that are winning a lot, you have worries about them potentially becoming complacent, right? Complacent tendencies against lesser competition. I don't know what Cignetti's telling them during the week, but they're not complacent whatsoever. They come in, they're mean, they start out strong, and they score points, and they defend, and they hit you hard, right? And I'm expecting more of that here. 14.5 is a big number with some NFL guys on the field for Penn State. It's an environment, obviously, it's something that Fernando Mendoza and company going to have to deal with, but it's a noon game, right? It's not Happy Valley at night. I think they will navigate that just fine. They'll run the ball. They'll throw the ball. Surratt, he's up in the air with the hamstring. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's not a big deal. It certainly is. And, we'll see if they protect him because, those hamstrings obviously can linger, and they definitely want him for the home stretch because he is unbelievable at that wide receiver position. But I'm laying the 14.5. Give me the Hoosiers on the road. I think they continue their hot streak. I think they continue their run of domination. And I think as a college football fan, we're all hoping for Ohio State, Indiana, Big Ten championship, a couple of unbeaten teams. Obviously, we'll see if Ohio State can handle Michigan for the first time in, 10, 15 years. But looking forward to potentially that happening. So, Cignetti, minus 14.5. Give me the Hoosiers. Called it my favorite game of the weekend. A lot of people are on Iowa in this spot, and so am I, right? Kinnick Stadium, it's the real deal, man. It's a tough place to play. Kirk Ferentz, this is the best group that he's had in a few years here. Look, Iowa wins this game. It's time to start talking about them as being a potential playoff team. Now, if they get blown out by Oregon, which I think is a possibility, right? If that happens, then obviously, we all laugh at that. But I think the Hawkeyes are a solid team. Really good defense. They run the football with their quarterback. Good special teams. They feast on turnovers. They capitalize when they force turnovers. And if they can start out strong in the first quarter and apply some pressure here, get that crowd going into the game, that weather, that rain starts coming down. Oh, it's getting cold. Oh, it's borderline sleet at Kinnick Stadium. Oregon kind of backs against the wall here. Maybe that can help them out here. I don't love all the noise and all the love that Iowa's gotten here going in this game because it's just a bunch of juice for Dan Lanning, and best believe he's feeding that to his team here throughout the course of this week. I guarantee you he played the Herb Street clip of him picking Iowa on the McAfee show. His team has seen that. They're ticked off about it, and I expect them to show up ready to play here in this game. But so's Iowa. This is a huge game in the Big Ten, and this is kind of the great stuff about conference realignment. Like, who would have thought that Oregon-Iowa would be a big-time game? Well, here we are. Here it is at Iowa. Oregon has to come to Kinnick Stadium. Give me the Hawkeyes, man. Plus 6.5. I'm not ready to say they go out there and cover. But, go out there and win the game outright. But I do think they cover the spread. Give me the Hawkeyes plus 6.5. Texas Tech versus BYU in Lubbock, right? The CFP rankings have BYU a notch above Texas Tech. I get it. They're undefeated. Texas Tech is not. They lost to Arizona State. Mind you, that wasn't Barrett Morton pulling the trigger there of their offense. That was a Will Hammond-led team, who, by the way, had a really solid year at filling in as the backup. He got hurt, but now Barrett Morton, he should be good. He should be good to go. He's banged up too still, but Joey McGuire, what he's done down at Texas Tech, it's a real defense. They get after the passer. They stop the run, and I just think they're a far superior football team. And if this game was, at BYU, maybe I feel a little bit different. But Lubbock, they're going to be rocking. I know it's just a noon game, but it's a top 10 matchup. Game day going to be there. I think it's going to be a tremendous football game. And I'm laying the 10 points here with Texas Tech. Give me the Red Raiders minus 10. All right, 2 NFL plays here on the show. Lions and Commanders in Washington. Lions coming off a loss against the Minnesota Vikings. I'm laying the 7.5 here with Detroit. I absolutely am doing it. I believe Dan Campbell, coming off a loss, is 12-0 against the spread in his last 12 games. I believe that is the stat. And obviously, that's a pretty significant stat here. Look, they're going to be ticked off and ready to go here in this game. Minnesota, yeah, they're a feisty team. That's a tough place to play, by the way, at Minnesota. Not easy. I understand that. Flores runs a complicated scheme there defensively. They had some juice there from McCarthy. O'Connell called a great game, but Dan Campbell's ticked off about that because the Lions believe they're one of the best teams in the National Football League. And you look down, it's like, well, you've lost a few games here. If you're Detroit here at this point, I think they're going to go in there, and I think they're going to smack Washington. I don't think it's going to be close whatsoever. The public is all over the Lions, which I don't love, but I'm going to join them here in this situation. Minus 7.5. The Commanders are in shambles, right? We talked about it. No Jaden Daniels, obviously. Mariota is going to be their quarterback, who's one of the best backups in the league, I think. But they haven't been able to run the ball well. They haven't been able to get the ball to their skill guys. But I think the biggest takeaway is their defense stinks, right? Dan Quinn's the defensive guy, and they go out there and they spend some money there on defense. They're aggressive. Kind of blows up in their face. Sometimes this happens in the National Football League where you have a team where they go far in the playoffs and they kind of go all in and say, here we go for the next few years, and it doesn't work. It ain't working here this year for the Washington Commanders. We all were saying, Jaden Daniels, yeah, it was a great season he had, but I'm still worried about him staying healthy. Obviously, we hope he can get back to full health. Obviously, we hope he can go out there and be an effective player for the Commanders, but that was the concern, and he's got beat up several times throughout this year. That injury did not look good. I hope he's all right, obviously. But, I think the Lions go in there and dominate this game start to finish. I'll lay 7.5. Finally, Sunday Night Football. Chargers-Steelers. Obviously, Bengals are off this week. You got your close eye on that game, Sunday Night Football, and Ravens and the Bears as well. Ravens 4.5-point favorites against Chicago in that game. So go Bears and go Chargers, obviously. But minus 2.5, I'll lay it with the Chargers here. I love Justin Herbert. That guy's a dog, right? He can run it, makes good decisions, huge arm, accurate throwing the football. I'm worried about the tackles, right? I think if you sat there and said T.J. Watt goes off this game, has 3 sacks, I go, well, that's not great. And I think that's a possibility here. He lost both of his tackles, right? We saw Mahomes, in the Super Bowl when he didn't have his tackles against Tampa Bay. How'd that go? Yeah, not well at all. So I'm kind of making the argument here for Pittsburgh, despite the fact I'm taking the Chargers, but I trust Herbert at home. It's not really much of a home field advantage. In fact, there's probably going to be more Steeler fans there, but I trust the quarterback in Justin Herbert. I trust the run game a little bit. They got the backup that's coming, and he's provided kind of a spark for him. I trust Harbaugh in this spot. I trust Jesse Minter in the defense. And, look, Pittsburgh's coming off a huge win, right? Now, if Pittsburgh wins this game, it might be wraps in the North, unfortunately. We all kind of expected after that Cincinnati game for Pittsburgh to kind of fall back down to earth and start losing some games. Next thing you know, they knock off the Colts. Oh, shoot, here they come. This would be a huge win if Pittsburgh picks it up. But I trust the quarterback. I trust the skill guys. I trust the run game. I trust the head coach, and I'll lay the 2.5 with the Los Angeles Chargers in this football game, Sunday Night Football. Here we go. Indiana, minus 14.5 against Penn State on the road. Iowa, plus 6.5 at home against Oregon. Texas Tech, minus 10 at home against BYU. Lions, minus 7.5 at Washington. And then finally the Chargers, minus 2.5 at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our best bets of the weekend. Great week here at the show. Had a couple of guests come on this week. Certainly appreciate Hudson Klauke for coming on. And also Richard Skinner, Local 12. Great stuff talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. Big shout out to him. We certainly appreciate that. Looking forward to, obviously, the games this weekend. We'll be back on Monday. We'll break it all down. We'll try to get some more guests, introduce some more segments, and keep this thing rolling. Appreciate everybody, all the support that you've given us here at the Stone Shield Show. We started this, it's been about 2 months now. Yeah, it was September 8th, I believe. We sit here on November 7th. We've made some progress. We appreciate everybody, and we're going to continue to try to grow this thing here at the show. Appreciate everyone, as always. Reminder, clips, they go out on YouTube. Mailbag, we're trying to do one next week. Got to DM the show, either on Twitter or Instagram in order for that to happen. And, we'll talk about that, as it looks like I left Skinny's Twitter handle there at the top the whole time. But hey, these things happen. That's okay. Podcast will be out later this afternoon there as well, wherever you get your podcast. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, you name it. You can find the podcast. That will be up later this afternoon. Appreciate everyone as always, and have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.